Okay, guys, what's up? It is week 247. Let's start this off with some corrections. First up, I just want to mention that last week I was talking about the Phantasm movies. I mentioned the actor James Lee Gros from Part 2, that he was, Marty McFly. Everybody knows that was Eric Stoltz. And he was replaced, by, of course, Michael J. Fox. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. So let's hop into these reviews. The first one is from Severn Films. This is Delirium, aka Psycho Puppet. There's a bunch of movies named Delirium. Do not be confused. This is the one that was on the Video Nasties list. This has never had a home release anywhere besides a VHS in the States. I'm sure in UK it had one as well. Obviously it had to because it made a Video Nasties list. But yeah, so Peter Maris' directorial debut. He would go on to do a couple movies, but the one that rings in my mind, at least just by VHS cover, because I had it for years, is called Viper. And it's funny because James Tolkien plays a character that looks identical to that character in Viper, and then also has Ken Foray in it. I wish I could dig out my VHS for you and show you. I'm not sure exactly where it's at, but I remember buying that VHS because Ken Foray and James Tolkien were both in it, and he looks just like the main guy, or one of the main protagonists antagonist for sure, in Delirium. So yeah, like I said, Severin kind of specializes in putting out a lot of the stuff, Video Nasties, that never had good releases, and Delirium is the first time it's ever been on Blu-ray. So it follows the story of a murder that takes place. There's just somebody kind of focusing on women and killing them. It seems very typical at first, the kind of sleazy kind of, late 70s, early, 80s kind of slash, not necessarily slash, more exploitation, violence thing, slashing women. There's a couple cops that are put on the case, and they start to dig, and they realize that one of the people they're questioning doesn't seem on the up and up. One of the cops shows an interest in the secretary that works for this guy, and soon enough we realize that there's something that meets the eye. There is something involving a vigilante group, which reminds me of the Punisher comic, where essentially, I think What If Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe? It was a what if, and they basically, this huge rich vigilante group paid the Punisher to take out everybody. And Death Wish 4 has a similar story, but they kind of in that vein, where these kind of rich people are incorporating the people to take out, people that have, gotten away from their case or didn't get the correct sentence in their wishes or whatever. So it also incorporates a lot of Vietnam trauma. So I would compare this to the Severin release Born for Hell, aka Naked Massacre, in the sense that movie follows, a damaged Vietnam vet. Although I believe that Born for Hell is a little bit better done and more psychological as far as, focusing on that character and getting down more in a character study way. But so part of this film is, of course, the killer running around committing murder of women. Sometimes it's fairly sleazy. There is a gratuitous scene where a real amputee gets his hand chopped off. That always makes for a very convincing effect, gory. But yeah, the film ends like that kind of subplot and goes further and goes into this area of following around these business kind of guys and these cops and everything. It gets a little bit more interesting, and there's some good action at the end with some M16 firing and explosions and all that kind of stuff, and some decent squibs for sure. Yeah, it does bring up some of the kind of Vietnam, and I don't want to say it's like non-exploitation, but I guess it would be. Not all exploitation is really kind of made to be offensive or anything like that, but it's definitely using the Vietnam War and how people were damaged from it and everything like that. It looks pretty good for a low-budget movie, you know what I mean? A video nasty that's never been released. I have nothing to compare it to except possibly a VHS is the only kind of thing it's ever been released to. But so the special features are directing Delirium, interview with Peter Maris, and I believe this guy was a Greek director, yeah, there's a nice interview with him, and he talks about making this movie and getting everything done. That was nice. And The Monster is Man, interview with special effects artist Bob Shelley, and that was interesting too, because this guy's been working in special effects for a long time. He talks about, setting the rig for certain squibs and all that kind of stuff, and you can see in the background he's got a lot of weaponry to work with and all that kind of stuff. So he worked on the Dukes of Hazzard, so it's a nice, interesting little interview with him and everything. And I always like hearing special effects artists on. And in the horror genre, we hear all about the guys who do the gore effects, Savini and Rob Bottin, and the monster effects like that. But there's other guys too that do a lot of explosions and work on stunt work to make it safe too. And that's kind of more like a Bob Shelley thing. Although he seemed to do the practical effects too, but he was more of an action oriented action adventure guy. Anyways, yeah, I enjoyed this one. There's some Vietnam flashbacks, a couple kind of brutal moments in that. But I know some people probably put video nasty, think extremely nasty. It's not that, but it definitely, I guess it earned its spot on the list. It's not one of the most extreme, but I'm finally glad I got to see this frickin' thing. You know, it's been so long, and it's finally got a nice release from Severin Video. So check it out if you're interested in Delirium. I know that there is quite a bit of people that would be. There is like 3 movies called Delirium, so don't mix them up. I know there's one by Lamberto Bava that came out, probably the late 87 or somewhere around there, maybe 86, I'm not 100% sure. And I think there's even another Delirium that I'm probably another Italian one made in the early 70s that Renato Poselli, I think, directed. So anyways, it's not those movies. It's a different one. It's an American flick made by, I believe, a Greek director in 1979. Made the Video Nasties list in Britain. And finally, it's on Blu-ray, looking pretty solid. In all its uncut glory. Okay, the next one from Severin Films shouldn't really need an introduction as far as like the Grindhouse or those kind of movies or Video Nasty movies are concerned, because this sucker made the list too. And this is Don't Go in the House. The first time I saw this one, it was on a Shriek Show DVD years back. And then it was re-released, I believe, by Scorpion or Code Red on Blu-ray. But there's been alternate different cuts of this film forever. So this version actually has 3 freaking cuts on it. So it's got all the goodness. It's got The Burning, an alternate TV cut, but it also includes the intro cut, which has everything in there. And I think the TV cut has stuff that wasn't in the uncut version, and the TV version has stuff that's not in the other version. So this is the intro cut, and it still only runs in at 92 minutes altogether. So it's not a super long movie. That's kind of nice to see, honestly. Anyways, this is a movie that I watched initially the one time, and I remember having good memories of it. The title alone is one that will pique your interest, the cover and all that kind of stuff. And it's also was nice to see in this release, finally, the director gets to talk about it. He mentions, I'm sure this has been out there before, but the producer, the guy Ed Montaro, who produced a lot of stuff that Severin put out lately, like Day of the Animals and Grizzly and all that stuff. And he kind of had the campaign for Don't Go in the House. Originally, this movie was supposed to be called The Burning Man, and then it was shortened to The Burning, and then they had The Burning in 81, another movie. So it kind of, I don't know, this was made first, but maybe they saw the title coming out. They did change it, though. And they changed it, I think, because that Ed Montaro had that marketing plan, which is nice. Anyways, this follows the kind of Psycho storyline, of course. Psycho, Maniac, same year. I doubt that they ripped each other off. Just, it's in the, Psycho is a very popular movie, and it's kind of extreme grindhouse movies or whatever. So basically it follows a mama's boy who's domineering mother. She ends up dying, and they're in this big house. He obviously has a lot of problems from the abuse that he took from his mother. They show that in flashbacks about him being burnt over the stove. One day at work, he witnesses somebody catch fire, and he works at the incinerator burning garbage, and he kind of freezes up when he goes home. His mother dies, kind of like in the Willard sense too, in the movie Willard, where his mother died. He kind of just went crazy in that big old house. So he kind of snaps after that, and he starts talking to his dead mother, Ed Gein style, Psycho style, and that kind of vein. And it gets worse and worse there. And the movie is, aka name, like I said, was The Burning. So anybody that knows this movie knows it's infamous for a couple scenes of the lead character actually using a flamethrower as his main weapon of choice, which is insane. So right there, as they say in the special features too, there's a really gratuitous scene where a woman is stripped nude and burned with a flamethrower. And burning someone with a flamethrower will get asses and seats. People just got to see it. You can't believe it. And when you hear it, you're like, how is this going to be played? It's going to be so stupid. And then you watch it, it's actually kind of like a fairly well-grounded, psychological thriller. So, like, we follow the main character throughout most of the movie while he picks up people and his interactions. And at times you feel sorry for him. But in other ways, you see, like, the difference in his mentality when he's home alone in that house talking to his victims that are now obviously burnt and sitting in these chairs. He just has this alternate ego and this sense of fake reality and living vicariously through telling them that he was the tough guy when you really see what happened to him at work and all this kind of stuff like that. That's interesting stuff for me. I always am a sucker for these psychological character studies, and Don't Go in the House has that a lot more than people would think. Being made in like the very late 70s, we do have a disco tinge to it and a dance group and everything. The one thing that always struck me funny about this movie is there's a character that he works with that always is very concerned about him. He's like, well, what are you doing tonight? And you're like, what is this guy's, like, as I get older, I know it's a shitty thing to say, but you're just like, I just want to go home. I don't want to deal with your problems. I don't want to deal with my problems. The guys at my work, a lot of them just kind of, when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's just like they're just kind of keep to themselves. They don't, but I know it's not necessarily a good thing. But it is just so funny that this guy that he works with is so concerned about him and his mental health and all this kind of stuff. But after they start hanging out, he immediately just uses him as like a wingman. It's so weird and bizarre. But yeah, there's also, like I said, I believe the priest character in this movie has some really rough ADR. I feel like his voice can't be his own. But if there's anybody else's ADR, I did not notice it. So that's a prop. So it's everybody's ADR'd in here, and it's the priest is the only one that stands out. Then that's really impressive. Or if he was ADR'd only and for some particular reason or not. But yeah, this thing is loaded with special features. I do enjoy this one. I think it's one of the better kind of don't movies. I also like Don't Answer the Phone, and aka of Let Sleeping Corpses Lie was a don't movie, Don't Open the Window or something like that. But yeah, there's a bunch of them, and this is one of the top of the heap of them. So as special features are concerned, like I said, the Burning Alternate TV cut, and you have audio commentary director Joe Ellison and producer Ellen Hamill, archival commentary with actor Dan Grimaldi, who's very good in this role. He does a very good job. Housekeeping, interviews with co-producer Matthew Mallison and co-writer Joseph R. Macefield. We went in the house, the locations of Don't Go in the House, Playing with Fire, archival interview, actor Dan Grimaldi. And then we have trailer and gallery, and then disc 2, audio comment, integral cut. We have an audio commentary with Stephen Thrower, author of Nightmare USA, who loves American independent movies and regional cinema and everything. He's an expert on it. Minds of Fire, video essay by the reprobate David Flint, and I did watch that, and I remember quite liking it. Burn Baby Burn, interview with director Joseph Ellison. And he brings up some interesting points that, he wasn't really like a crazy horror guy or anything, and he wasn't one of these people that set out to make horror films, and he was offered a horror film after this, and he just didn't take it. And he reflects on it. He's like, I wonder if I would have taken it, if I would have put my dues in, and I'd be making big films now, like a lot of other directors. It's hard to say. And it's interesting, though. Grindhouse All-Stars interviews with filmmakers Matt Clymer, who did stuff like The Candy Tangerine Man and Witch Who Came from the Sea, which are both really... I've never seen Candy Tangerine Man, but I will speak on Witch Who Came from the Sea, which is one that I really like. Joseph Ellison, of course, Ray Frumkes, who did Street Trash, and Jeff Lieberman, who did Just Before Dawn and Squirm and some others. And then we have the open Matt flamethrower scene. So a lot of these movies, when they're cut to widescreen or their actual, correct ratio, people are used to seeing them, in open screen, full screen when they read them on tape and everything like that. And there's a couple movies that come to mind that have more nudity in the full frame. This being one, because the girl chained up, of course, burned alive, naked. You see more of her, down nether regions. And there's another one, Evil Speak. I remember the full screen version. You saw more of the woman and the librarian in the bathtub. And I guess that's very disappointing for some people not being able to see the full frame of the, the picture and everything like that. So they include that. And a don't trailer reel, which should be a lot of fun. But anyways, this looks great. It sounds great. It's finally the uncut version. So you can watch 3 different versions. But the TV cut, the theatrical cut, and the integral cut. The actual TV cut, the theatrical cut is only 83 minutes, but that integral cut is 92. And I love that companies are finally doing this. They did, Arrow did it with Blood Rage, aka Nightmare Shadow Woods, and Arrow also did it with Phantom of the Mall. So yeah, I like the integral cuts because we kind of get to see everything in one spot. And Don't Go in the House, good movie. I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff, and it is kind of creepy when he's picking up women and talking to them and everything, and he has like kind of a nice nature, but you're like Norman Bates meters going off all over the place. Like, no, I gotta go home to my mother. I stay in the fucking van. I don't care. But anyways, good stuff from Severn Films. Check it out. Nice release again. Okay, so this is going to be the start of the Sylvia Kristel box set. From Cult Epics. I'm going to do one movie a week for 4 weeks until the set's done, obviously. So this first one, this is 1970s collection. The first one we're going to do is Playing with Fire from 1975. And this is by a director, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but he's a very prolific French director. What is it? He's a 3-name one. I always do this. Alain Robert-Grillet. I know French is very hard for me. It took me years to say Jean Roland right, okay? So bear with me. This guy also did a couple movies that are fairly, what was it? Successive Slidings of Pleasure. He did. Oh, geez. What is the one that came out in 1970? Oh, geez. All his films are like kind of semi-controversial. Usually, Kino Lorber, the Redemption line, puts a lot of these out. So, yeah, I was interested in this. I think it's an interesting take to follow kind of an actress. This actress, Sylvia Kristel, was famous for being an Emmanuel, one of the like the big kind of like softcore movements. Obviously, Emmanuel had spawned a bunch of sequels, and it spawned the Italian series, the Black Emmanuel series with Laura Gemser and all that kind of stuff. So playing with fire. Now, first and foremost, this is, like I said, this is a very bizarre, kind of surreal, absurdist movie. It definitely kind of like provokes in certain ways, and it's just kind of a one of these mind-bending weird movies. The main star in the film is John Louis Truganet. Again, French is not my forte, obviously, and some would say reviewing isn't either. But so this actor I know from a handful of movies like Death Laid an Egg. He is also in The Great Silence, and geez, he was in one of the Umberto Lenzi Gialli, the Baker movies, and he's just he's in a slew of these movies, French films and Euro horror and Euro kind of cult cinema. He's a very prolific actor. You'd recognize him if you saw him, and he's very good, and he plays these kind of complex roles very well. So this one is a bonkers plot. It's, like I said, absurdist to the max. So it follows the story of this he's a very powerful, I believe he's like a politician of sorts, and he gets a letter that his daughter's been kidnapped, and like in the very beginning we see this young woman kidnapped on the train tracks. They examine her by looking at her breast. She has these 3 moles. They take her away, put her in a box, and ship her out. After that, like we're assuming that the daughter's been kidnapped and everything like that. The father ends up getting sprayed in the face by these people that are part of this big organization. It's a huge organization that supposedly kidnapped her. And after like 20 minutes of it completely switches on its own, and we realize that she hadn't been kidnapped. And we start to have like this duality of like characters almost. Like some people say that it's actually like I would say a doppelganger, but it's got to just be more of a fantasy of these people playing like these dual lives or dual roles, or somebody's involved with this stuff. So it becomes completely bonkers and weird. And if you listen to the commentary by Tim Lucas, which I do recommend you do, because at the end of this movie I was thinking, I am not sure what the hell to think of that. Of course, this director, his films are well shot. They're well acted. They have, beautiful people in them, or interesting actors, and all sorts of things like that. So there's always that positive to them. But to try to break down your first view of this and talk about it is hard to say. And Tim Lucas mentions that he felt like a lot of the reviewers or critics of the film went to talk about it, and they were lost for words, so they kind of just lashed out at it. And I could see that, because when I was done with it, I said, well, I don't know what the hell, and I'm not calling myself like a professional critic or anything like that. I'm just someone who watches a lot of freaking movies, a lot of weird movies at that. Like, I went to talk about it, and I was like, how do I talk about this movie? Like, it was weird and different. It kept me guessing, and I never quite could find my fitting in what the hell was going on. But it didn't make me like it for that, because I had no I had no ground to know where the hell it was going to go. And sometimes that works for me, sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, like, I could tell that it was definitely in a comedic sense. But so anyways, the daughter is taken to a place by John Louis, who seems to be playing dual roles, or possibly just somebody who's incognito at certain points. Obviously, kind of deal. Like the father too has these fantasies of incest with his daughter and everything, so it gets really bizarre. Like he starts to fulfill his fantasies due to this act of the possible kidnapping. Anyways, it's hard to tell where reality and fantasy kind of blur and everything like that. So she ends up being taken to a brothel to hide her, and it's pretty much the same brothel where all the other people that are being kidnapped and held ransom for and everything like that. And this brothel is basically high class people come in and sleep with these women. And there's all these different women from different places and everything like that. And that's Sylvia Kristel is in this film as well. She has a smaller role in here, and she gets to be directed by this big French director, so that's kind of a positive. And Tim Lucas does, for her career and everything. And Tim Lucas does mention that this came out or was being shot before Emmanuel was released, so her having that first billing in that movie probably got her wages higher on this. Anyways, the movie looks fantastic, like I said, and it leaves this weird kind of opening of kind of like, hey, who gives a shit kind of deal like that. So it's just it throws me for a loop in a lot of places. It's a lot of weird stuff going on, and then like certain people will enjoy this one. This is a movie that you kind of I don't like. I've talked to Nico before, who runs Cult Epics, and we were talking about one of the films directed by he basically was talking about my review, and we were talking back and forth, and he said it's really kind of like it's not really a movie you review. We were talking about one of the films by the director of In a Glass Cage. It was the kind of the almost like superhero style one in a way, origin story kind of deal, which is a crazy movie. And he's like, it's not really a movie you review, you know, it's just kind of a movie you experience. And I would put that in the same vein here. Well, Cult Epics has released so much stuff that I've been familiar with, like the York Buckarett movies, which I had seen a lot and or been very familiar with for a very long time, and seen all of them, you know, a handful of times. So like I knew kind of what to expect. It also kind of bleeds into that art extreme side. But when we're getting into like a lot of these, you know, Scandinavian or films from, or Dutch films or French films that are more of that absurdist artsy world, it leaves me at a loss for words. Although I think that watching this kind of stuff makes you a better film fan or cinephile, wherever you want to put it. It does leave you a little baffled at what to say. So I am looking forward to watching the rest of this set, and next week will be the next one here. But yeah, this is a cool set and a cool idea. Like I said, we had that Umberto Lenzi Baker set where that does that collaboration, and it's kind of nice to focus on like different actresses or different actors or directors at certain times. And this is kind of I don't want to say it's not necessarily like the typical set you would get or something like that. You know what I mean? As far as like a director set, but it's an actor focusing on a bunch of work and everything, and it's an actress that I am not as familiar with as you know, I would like to be or anything like that. So yeah, it's very cool to have this set, and I'm definitely going to be checking out the next one. And I do like seeing the John Luis guy, Luis. He's in, like I said, a bunch of movies, and he just keeps popping up. In the last year, I feel, or a couple years, I feel like I've seen like half a dozen of his movies, and he's just one of these very prolific character actor. I wouldn't even say he's like a leading man too at the same time. He's kind of hard to pinpoint. But anyways, if this one sounds like it's up your alley, check it out. I'm going to be reviewing the next one next week, so sticking for that. I like doing these box sets as like a weekly, do a couple movies from each set, maybe 1, 2, 3, depending on how many are in there, just to not get burnt out on the same stuff, because like I said, I like to mix it up and keep it fresh for myself and everything like that. So anyways, check this out if it sounds like it's up your interest. Yeah. All right, this next one here is from Dark Force Entertainment, and this is Ride the Hot Wind from 1971. And I did not know much about this one, and this is kind of a strange movie. It's fairly short, and it stars an actor called Tommy Kirk. And Tommy Kirk looks like he was in a lot more wholesome stuff than Ride the Hot Wind from 1971. He was in more wholesome stuff. He looks kind of like a, you know, like a young actor who had like that fresh face that would pop up in like a TV show and everything like that. And he's just an actor I wasn't too familiar with, like, but he reminded me of a lot of like Robert Walker, what was it, Robert Walker Jr., somebody like that, like, but just in more like kind of I guess wholesome roles. But he's a little unhinged in this movie, where that he had that impression that he was an all-American boy turned unhinged, and I think that's what they're going for. So this movie opens up with some Vietnam footage and everything like that, and we kind of learn that this commanding officer, this guy who is in charge, I don't remember I think he was maybe a lieutenant or something along those lines. He was an officer for sure. I don't think he was a sergeant or anything like that. He was an officer. Anyways, some horrible act, war crime happened in Vietnam, and essentially he's been held responsible. He's on trial, and he's basically, it divides the country. Everybody's really upset about this. Half the people want to condemn him, half the people want him to go free. Although he wasn't there during it, he is responsible because he was the commanding officer. He didn't give the orders, but he is responsible. So he ends up being discharged dishonorably, of course, and he has to serve time in a military prison doing hard labor, where he is beaten and and taken down. We have like a kind of a prison segment. I should mention in the courtroom scene, the prosecutor is the most ridiculous hair I've ever seen in my life. I do not know what's going on. He has like a good hairline in the front, and then he has like a bald V. Like, I don't know if it's a spot for a toupee. I don't know if it's shaved down bald. It's weird. Like, he's not wearing a toupee, but it looks like his head was shaved in a strange, weird way on the top of his head. I have no idea what's going on, and I would never bring that up normally. It does not really matter in the film, but it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen hair do in a movie that was like that. So anyways, he tries to go on about his life after he's released. So like we have the courtroom stuff, the Vietnam stuff, then we go into the prison stuff, and then like the movie just like it's kind of like meandering this character everywhere in these different places, and you're just like, what the hell? And it's not a very long movie. And eventually he gets kind of saddled up with his biker gang, and it turns into this whole like all American, once rejected by America. He becomes like this hardened biker, and he's traveling with these guys, and there's a couple that are real scumbags, like just first chance they get, they will rape and pillage and everything. And although he has that rough exterior now that he's gained, he's not an actual horrible monster, but everywhere he goes he is ridiculed for the supposed war crimes. He's not supposed, there are war crimes that he's supposedly guilty of. So yeah, it brings up a question, and it becomes fairly interesting in that aspect. This guy being blamed for this, and somebody that served their country being kind of thrown away, Vietnam kind of thing. And Delirium this week brings that up too, right? After they serve, what use are they good for? That kind of stuff. There's a lot of that going on in the 70s. This is early too. This is 71, so it's Vietnam still happening, And then we meet kind of this sheriff character, and the sheriff character has some decentness in him, and I think he has some sympathy for the war guy. And that's probably the most interesting stuff in the movie is those two characters and that sheriff character and everything like that. But the movie is a little meandering. It doesn't seem to ever find what it wants to be and ever really get to where it's going. The very ending, it has some impactful stuff with the sheriff, but all in all, it's not necessarily a very memorable exploitation or drive-in film, to be honest. I would have loved to hear a commentary or some background information on the movie, to be honest, just to see how the actor got involved. Why is there not much on this movie in general? Like, you can't find a trailer for it online or anything. So like a lot of these movies, there's so many kind of obscure movies. I'm sure maybe there is some stuff been written about it, but they're so hard to find information on them, right? So you have a lot of questions that they bring up, and sometimes when the movies don't have features, it's left you with a lot of questions. But overall, I didn't love the movie. It has a downbeat, kind of nihilistic or nihilistic, I never know which is the proper way to say that, nihilistic or nihilistic. I would go with nihilistic kind of ending to its movie, which fits very much in 1971 kind of oeuvre of like those movies, whatever. They were always very downbeat. But yeah, I can't say that I 100% enjoyed this film, but it does have some interesting points, and it does have a couple interesting characters, and I did like the lead. I did like Tommy Kirk. I thought he did a good job, and somewhat sympathetic character, to be honest. So yeah, that is Ride the Hot Wind. Okay, the next one is from Trauma, of course. So yeah, this is one of their most iconic titles, I will say. It's one of the ones that people remember for obvious reasons. Surf Nazis Must Die. And first thing I will say about Surf Nazis Must Die is, this is probably one of my favorite trailers ever cut. It has amazing music in it. It's just so well done, and it seems very comedic, but very crazy, as the Trauma movie should be. So 1987, Surf Nazis Must Die. This is a weird, kind of strange, I guess you'd say, post-apocalyptic world, or it's post an earthquake that hit, the California area, and it just basically turned everything into turmoil. There doesn't seem to be any police around. Essentially, the surfers rule the beaches, and who rules the surfers? Surf Nazis. I shouldn't lift my arm like that when I do that. That's from the trailer. That did not look good. Do not take that out of context, people. But so anyways, yeah, so there's a group of surf Nazis that run the beaches, run by Adolf and Ada? Is it Ada? There's a group of surf Nazis. They're all ridiculous. And it's strange because the film feels somewhat grounded in reality at times, but then you have a character named Hook who's got these very giant comical hooks, and Mengele, obviously named after Joseph Mengele, the gross Nazi scientist who did experiments on people, and he's kind of this like gross kind of Peter Lorre type that's like, not that Peter Lorre's gross, but he's the grosser version of like a Peter Lorre type and everything like that. So essentially, one day these Nazis are on the beach, and somebody kind of stops them from doing something horrific, bad to somebody, snatch an old lady's purse. And this is a young African-American gentleman that works at a nearby plant. He's a chief at the plant, and he has obviously stepped, on the Nazis' grounds, and they don't like it, and they get their revenge. But what he didn't count on is the other kind of the protagonist of this movie is Leroy's mama. and that's who is attacked as Leroy. And Leroy's mama is this woman who's just been put in old folks home. She don't take anybody's shit. She's tough, and she wants to get vengeance on the surf Nazis, of course. So like pretty much all the best moments of the film, a lot of them do take place with Leroy's mama, and I refer to her as that because that's how the trailer runs her, and it's one of the best. Like I said, when I watched this trailer, anybody who watched this trailer would definitely be let down by the movie because the trailer is so much fun. But so essentially what happens is Leroy's mama gets revenge on these surf Nazis. There's a lot of fight scenes between alternate gangs and everything like that. There's kind of like a warrior style thing going on. And the first thing, the most complimentary thing I will say about Surf Nazis Must Die is there's a lot of great shots in this film. Shots that shouldn't be as good as they are. Like I was just very impressed with like just the setups and everything. I was like, wow, that's a beautiful shot. Like a wide and like a abandoned factory. You can see like the light coming through, and like kind of like they'll blur Leroy's mama. I don't remember. Mrs. Washington, I believe, is actually her name. She'll like be walking in frame and she's like out of focus, and she'll walk into focus, and like the like I don't know. It's just like the camera work is way better, and the cinematography and like the what's the word I'm looking for? The depth of focus, depth of field and stuff. That stuff's used way better than it should be. All right. It's just not like as extreme as you would think, or as action-packed as you would think from the crazy trailer. But the title is very memorable, and I remember the movie. I've seen this a couple times, and I always remember it, and the bad guys and everything like that. There's some crazy fight scenes. Overall, it's a decent kind of trauma release. It's not one of my favorites. But it does have its memorable moments, and a lot of that is due to Miss Washington and everything like that. There is some special features on here, of course. Interview with Lloyd Kaufman, interview with Peter George, who's the director, I believe, yes. Interview with Robin Tinnell, Radiation March promo, deleted scenes from the Tromaville Cafe, Soul of Trauma, Gizzard Face, Trauma Now promo, and more. I mean, Trauma always puts a lot of crazy shit on their Blu-rays and DVDs. So they say Clockwork Orange meets Mad Max on the beach. Yeah, so anyways, it's worth checking out if you're interested in it. I think that some people do really enjoy this one. I'm alright on it. Like I said, much better film than I remembered. It looks like a quality film. I don't know what, it's kind of like right in the middle where it's just not goofy enough to be like funny, and it's not more action-packed enough to be like serious. So it's just in a weird spot. And like I know Trauma is infamous for having like weird tones and everything like that, but it doesn't really fit with a lot of the other Trauma stuff either. But yeah, Surf Nazis Must Die. Okay, the next one is another Shaw Brothers movie. That's right, I'm still in the Shaw Brothers stuff. From last week, I finally finished the Shaw Brothers Shawscope set. Now I'm getting to some of the 88 film Shaw Brothers movies, and this one right here is Disciples of Shaolin. And this is directed by Chang Chi, who did a bunch of the stuff that I've watched already. Boxer Shang Twong, Five Venoms, Crippled Avengers. So this guy's very prolific in the Shaw Brothers, catalog. And this one stars Fu Shang, who is in a bunch of ones, Chinatown King, and he died at a very young age. He's also one of the kind of the big guys in the Shaw Brothers movies, a very famous face, kind of a cult icon, I'd say at this point for sure. So the Disciples of Shaolin. The first thing I noticed, this one is very much super familiar story, and it's almost like the Boxer of Shang Tuan, where we have this kind of rags to riches story of this fighter moving into this small town, and he is a master at kung fu. Nobody really knows it. Eventually he shows off his talents and rises up and becomes somebody of importance. This one is a little bit different in that aspect, that we have Fu Shang coming in, meeting his friend who works at a textile kind of plant, and Fu Shang has like a childlike quality about him. He is almost like he has like a little chip on his shoulder. He won't let people boss him around 100% and everything like that. So his friend, who seems to be very kind of, I would say very humbled, and doesn't seem to want to get involved with a lot of fights and everything, although he is a great kung fu master as well. His friend gets him a job at this textile factory, or whatever they're making, like fabric and everything. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. And soon enough, he kind of proves his kung fu against like one of the foremen and everything like that. And instead of being fired, his friend like speaks up for him. But soon Fu Shang's martial arts skills are going to be put to use when another martial factory is competing with them, sends over their martial arts guys to beat up all their workers to try to steal them away and everything like that. So we have this war between these two plants and everything like that. So they're constantly fighting to get workers and everything for the money and stuff. What's really interesting about this one is to see the difference in how Fu Shang and his friend kind of look at the situation, and eventually we learn more backstory on his friend and everything, and you can kind of see that it's proving a point. And I do believe this point, that people fight to the death over things, and they die, they lose their lives, but the true people in charge never really give a shit. It never really affects them in a lot of ways, and that is here. That is here. Like, this character who kind of runs one of the plants is more concerned about his crickets, teaching his crickets how to become masters of kung fu, than anybody's life lost. And some people can understand that a little bit deeper than others. And Fu Shang, this is unfortunate. He's going to learn this lesson. It's going to be the hard way. But a lot of the fighting is fantastic. There's a really cool scene where one of the main baddies shows up to fight Fu Shang, and he kind of just really humbles him in front of all his friends. That is very kind of entertaining, and it really ends in a downbeat way, and it has a lot of similarity, a lot of DNA to the boxer from Shang Tuang, with all that character and everything, and all the way to the downbeat ending. These are almost verbatim, but there's differences here. This kind of brings up kind of a workforce and everything like that, which is not the same as boxer. That's more of like I'd say a Scarface story, where that kind of becomes like a protector and everything. This one, he is a protector, but he's still working for a living and everything like that. And I was actually really moved by when he finally gets some leverage to get what he wants, because he's realized as a commodity that is useful, he asks for shoes. And like beat down shoes, and his friend takes those beat down shoes and keeps them for him. And I was like, that's very touching. And even to the very end, Fu Shang is still focused on those shoes. So there's a lot of stuff that is just nice little touches that make it a little better than a lot of the other kung fu movies I've seen. So here's the special features are concerned. We have slipcase with brand new artwork by R.P. Kung Fu Bob O'Brien, extensive booklet notes, the visceral martial arts cinema of Chang Chiu, an interview with Jamie Luke by Matthew Edwards, international bright young thing, a look back on the disciples of Shaolin and its charismatic star Alexander Fu Shang by Andrew Graves, plus Finding Fu Shang by Carl Newton. Double-sided full-out poster. Then we have HD Master 35. It looks great. It looks really good. I was very impressed, and I've been impressed with 88 Films' output in the United States so far as film quality is concerned. They all look great. Audio commentary with Asian cinema experts Mike Leader and Arnie Avenma. And then we have a commentary also by author Sam Deegan, who I love, because you usually see her do horror movie stuff, so seeing her do kung fu stuff is a welcome. Interview with Jamie Luke and trailer reversible sleeve. So yeah, it's another nice release. Very heavy, nice slipcover and everything like that. So if you haven't seen Disciples of Shaolin or you like it, check it out. Nice release of a cool movie. Okay, so the next is the Patreon pick, and this is by Jason Willard, and he picked Class Act. So next week for the Patreon pick, I'm going to do Chopper. I got that on Blu-ray, so yeah, I was planning on doing it this time, but I wanted to order the Blu-ray. Never mind. This is Class Act. So anyways, Class Act, it stars Kid and Play, who are like rappers in the 80s and early 90s. I am not familiar with their music, as I was a little kid during that time, but I recognize these two. I grew up with them being around in kind of movies and everything like that. The house party movies were movies that me and my brother watched. My brother's a little older than me. I remember him loving those house party movies, the first two. And I remember watching those, and we felt they were really goofy and fun and just silly. And I just remember having some affinity for those movies. I have not watched them in years. I don't remember if I've ever saw Class Act. I feel like we probably did rent Class Act because we liked them. So, this stars the two rappers. They're a rapping duo, and they do rap in the movie, and it's entertaining as shit. But, okay, so it's a typical kind of mistaken identity story, right? We have the tough guy, I can't remember, Blade Brown, the super tough gangster kid that's got to go to school, kind of, or he's got to go back to prison, yada, yada, yada. Has a lot of respect in that, like, kind of street tough community. And then we have the nerdy guy as the other guy. I can't remember his character's name, and he's obviously like a genius. He's going to get, a scholarship, and he basically gets sent to this normal school, even though they do have kind of like a place for like genius kids at the same time, because I don't think he can pass PE or something. He can't pass gym. So essentially these two, their identities get switched, and they kind of live the life and get to see how it is. And of course, hijinks ensue, like the nerdy guy having to kind of run away from a big tough bad guy, and the gangster kid having to do biology projects that are super smart and everything like that. But of course they overcome it, and they realize that maybe there's a part of their life they've been missing, and they meet women that normally would not go for them, but they see that, and it starts a relationship. And the one of the girls in the movie is actually from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I recognized her right away. I had to look her up, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, I knew knew her. She's also in a couple movies I'd seen. So anyways, it's a very goofy, very typical 90s movie with a lot of the kind of gags you would expect. The movie does have like a climax in a wax museum, which is really fun. It has like the story being told from a jail cell and everything like that, so you really kind of have a sense, I guess, of mystery about it. Although this is one of these movies where as much as crazy shit that happens, you know it's going to be okay at the end and everything like that. But yeah, it is obviously a fish out of water kind of story where they both don't know what the hell to do. There's some 90s jokes, some probably dated terribly now, but I was a 90s kid, so I kind of enjoy them. Yeah, a lot of zany, goofy characters and everything like that. Yeah, so it's enjoyable. It's silly. It's pretty. I think it's PG-13. It's not really extreme or anything like that in that sense. But it also reminds me of something like High School High, which just with John Lovitz, where he goes. Is it Tina Carrere and John Lovitz are in? He has to go to inner city school and ridiculous shit happens to him. That's a little later than this one, but in the same vein, which I find entertaining as well. But yeah, I enjoyed Class Act. You can see it in HD on Amazon if you would like. Wouldn't mind a Blu-ray. Might pick it up if it was a Warner Archive or something at a good price. I would grab this one and have it in the collection. There's something charming to me about those just like goofy early 90s comedies and everything like that. So anyways, Class Act, enjoyable. I can't really speak on like a lot of the other aspects about it, like their actual real careers and everything, but there's a lot of good jokes with the two. The one Blade Brown like beating the shit out of him all the time and threatening him, and the other guy like and how would they turn it and use it, like kind of stuff to their advantage. Anyways, just an enjoyable movie. I mean, it's not going to win any Academy Awards, but I know that's a stupid fucking thing to say. It's like, no shit, Dave. Why do you got to say it then? Anyways, but it's still fun, right? It's still a product of its time and entertains me nonetheless. Okay, let's hop into those 1994 movies.
Prison officials say Dahmer's head may have been bashed against a wall.
A day of last-minute appeals failed to stop the execution of America's most notorious mass murderer, John Wayne Gacy.
Throughout, Chikatilo presented himself as a wretched victim of nature's indifference.
Satan approves. Reality! What do you know about reality?
Handling It's
not a Solitaire story. This is not reality. Not reality. Not reality.
This is reality.
Not reality.
The delusion of a disordered mind, a phantom, a spirit, a ghost.
Look, he hasn't got any relatives, and the coma he's in is irreversible. Give me a signature and I'll pull the plug now.
Fuck off.
All right, and I watched a bunch of stuff from 1994 for you guys. The first one up is from Sub Rosa Studios. And this is from their kind of rewind or retro kind of label. They've been doing a lot of these like kind of low budget movies and putting them out on DVD. I love this label. There's a lot of kind of gems in there, to be honest. I found a couple of gems that I really like, or stuff that I was already familiar with getting a release, so that's nice. So Transgression. I want to make sure I'm not saying transgressive. Transgression. This is the director's cut. This movie I was unfamiliar with. Like I guess when I saw like the cover art, it kind of caught my attention, being on that line in 1994, doing the 94 stuff. I was like, oh, this could be very interesting. So yeah, it starts off with a news reporter who's in jail. She's kind of telling the story, and right off the bat, she has her narration says, I'm being put to death for the murder of 3 men. So you're like, okay, how are we going to get to this point? And she kind of tells her story, and like right in the very beginning of it, kind of caught my attention the way it's made with the narration and kind of this character is obviously psychologically damaged and everything. So the plot basically follows a journalist who, she seems to have some obviously some issues, and she's following the serial killer story. He's been picking up prostitutes and murdering them. She's dating a doctor. A cop at the time. Police officer she has a relationship who's obviously working on the case to complicate matters, and she starts to use the help of this psychiatrist, this doctor who is on her show and everything like that. I don't think it's really a spoiler to tell you who actually the killer is. It turns out to be the doctor's psychiatrist. It's fairly obvious right off the bat, and so he kidnaps her and he puts her through these torturous events, kind of changing her for the worse. So that's kind of the plot of the film and everything like that, and it feels kind of like the Stenhall syndrome, right, where we have the character who initially is a cop who has some struggling issues, and then she kind of goes through a change in the film when she confronts the killer, and then we have that last part of the movie where she's dealing with the trauma and kind of like becoming something else entirely. So as far as that concerns, I'm kind of interested in that stuff. I like the interaction between her and the cop, and it does remind me of another movie from 1984 that I'm going to talk about, Boy Meets Girl, because there's a lot of torturing stuff here and there, and like that. This isn't like super gratuitously gory or anything like that, but there is a lot of sexual stuff going on. Like I said, I don't have that much to say about the movie. That much to say sound like a moron, but I was actually intrigued by it. I thought it was well done, and it brings up a lot of kind of questions, and it just the style, the visual look is pretty good as well. Now the director does do a commentary, and he does mention that like changing some shots around from the original version and everything like that, and stuff like that. He even mentioned shooting on the 4th of July, recording on the 4th of July, which doesn't seem like a great idea. But yeah, this is an interesting enough kind of film, low budget and stuff. And I like these kind of like murder mysteries, especially when you get like a journalist or somebody involved with it. Like I always kind of intrigued in those movies, and it was a lot in the 90s. Like I feel like it happened a lot. Even Night Feeder, I think that they put out had a journalist at the core of the story looking into what was happening in the kind of gritty streets, people being murdered. So there's a lot of footage of kind of like the S&M kind of murder stuff where the killer wears this crazy mask and everything like that, and he does have that psychology too. Like we see a bit of his psychology and everything, so that's kind of interesting, similar to another 1994 movie that came out, Red to Kill, where we kind of get into the killer psychology. So a lot of serial killer shit in the 90s, a lot of crazy killer rapists, all that kind of stuff, gritty stuff like that, and low budget movies too. So it seems to be definitely a trend in 1994 continuing on. But yeah, check this one out if it sounds like it's up your alley. I do think it does have some good moments, and for a low budget movie, it has like a good aesthetic too. You know what I mean? They do use that well. Okay, the next one from 1994 is a Saturn's Core release. And they put out so much stuff from 1994 already in their first 7 releases. So this is Sinistre. And this I had on, this was originally released on Sub Rosa DVD. And it sat on the shelf for 15, 20 years, and I never watched it, right? I guess sometimes you're just an idiot about it. And I really should have watched it, because after watching it finally on Blu-ray for 1994, I was really happy with this one. It is a SOV, shot on video, low budget film, of course, regional for sure. And I didn't really know what to expect. I'd seen the cover, like I said, and if I would have known it was this good, I would have definitely popped it in. So it kind of has the Reservoir Dogs kind of crime film thing starting off at the very beginning, where we start off right in the back, kind of a la Mr. Orange, where there's 3 criminals escaping from a violent kind of shootout. We don't see the shootout or anything, but the one character in the back is bleeding, and another character is shot, and one is driving. And of course, the character in the back ends up passing away, dying, and everything's just brutal and messed up and bloody. So they continue to follow the same plan to drop off at this abandoned house and wait for the person that they had on the inside to show up. The house they've chosen was a big mistake. It's a big old farmhouse. It's a great location. It's creepy, but there's something sinister within the barn house, actually. And of course, so what starts happening is we have some sort of, I don't want to say demon, but it's very strange. It seems to be some sort of serial killer with some supernatural elements to them that has like this. It's almost like a haunted house story where there's people that were victims that must relive the incident, and there's also people that he claims were lost that circle the house, and they're kind of like ghouls that kind of pick up after the killers killed somebody and eat and stuff. It's a really weird movie. So like we have these 2 criminals kind of hiding out here trying to survive until their accomplice shows up. There's some interesting stuff with like they actually show the shootout, which I did not expect to see. I really did. Like in these movies, usually they don't tell you. Even Reservoir Dogs, they don't actually show you the shootout. They're all talking about what happened at the shootout, but you never see it. So this one, they actually show it fairly early on in the movie, and I will say that this has the biggest SOV squibs I've ever seen. Gun squibs to like the shootout is like just insane, and somebody is shot execution style. It's very bloody, very gory. This movie actually shines in the gore department, like axes to heads, all that kind of stuff, which was very impressive for a low budget movie. Sometimes you don't really know what you're going to get in a SOV or stuff like that. Mostly no digital effects, although there was one digital effect, and obviously it's not aged well on a SOV digital effect. You know, it's not going to look too great. Didn't look great. Besides that, there's a lot of practical effects, and I ended up enjoying it quite a bit. Like it's genuinely creepy. It's fast paced. It's about 73 minutes, so it doesn't really wear out its welcome. Acting ranges, you know what I mean? Like some of it's not amazing or anything like that. That's what I said about a lot of SOVs or regional filmmaking. Like a character will deliver like a bunch of dialogue and you're like, that sounds terrible. And then like they'll say one word or phrase and you're like, oh, that sounded dead on like somebody I've heard before. So it's like a lot of stuff like it's patchy in places, but again, you're dealing with such a low budget. For the most part, I don't really have any complaints about the acting or anything like that. Like I said, it is a weird kind of mind screw movie too, where you're kind of like, what the hell is happening in this house? But to me, it's just kind of like maybe Dead Dudes in a House kind of had a similar aspect where you're just like caught in this weird house kind of turn. But it's like gory and nasty, and I kind of was happy with that. And serious. It's not like a goofy movie. It's not silly, which I don't mind, but it is very not so often that you will get a very serious kind of movie in this kind of vein. But yeah, I was very happy with it, and I didn't know what to expect. But Saturn's Core has not really been disappointing me lately. I've been loving what they're doing. Like I said, I'm going to keep saying it until hopefully I wish it into existence. I know they've been focusing on SOV, but can we get Ice from the Sun by Eric Stanzi? That would be great. This director would later go on to direct another one called Ravage from 97-98, which I've not seen as well. I have it from SRS. Maybe we'll get a release from Saturn's Core. I don't know. Maybe we'll sit on my shelf for another 20 years before I watch it. Hopefully not. So anyways, yeah, Sinistre. Very happy with it. Cool stuff. Okay, the next one is another trauma movie. So 2 traumas this week. This is Class of Nuke 'Em High 3, The Good, The Bad, and The Subhumanoid. If anybody's seen this ridiculous-ass trailer, I want to make sure I say that right, because like I said, I made a mistake when I talked about Class of 1999 2, The Substitute, at one time, and it bit me in the ass. Everybody knows Mrparka ain't perfect. So anyways, it's a direct sequel to Part 2 that I covered for 1991. Yeah, I think I've covered 4 now of the 5 Class of Nuke 'Em Highs. The only one I haven't covered on the show is Part 1, which is my favorite. I love that movie. I just didn't cover it yet. I don't know why, but I've covered the 4 sequels, Class of Nuke 'Em High 2, Subhumanoid Meltdown, whatever the fuck it's called. Class of Nuke 'Em High Part 2, Subhumanoid Meltdown, I think is what it's called. I'm getting the songs talking about it. Part 3 now, and the 2 returns to Nuke 'Em High. So Part 3, I do feel like was a little improvement on Part 2. So, okay, Class of Nuke 'Em High 3 stars Brick Bronski, who was the star of Part 2. He was also in, The Masked Mutilator, which was a crazy wrestling movie that Intervision, slasher wrestling horror thing that Intervision put out, which I kind of was entertained by. Yeah, but Brick Bronski was a wrestler turned actor, of course. Actually, I looked him up. I was like, wonder what he's been up to, and he actually passed away August of 2021, so R.I.P. Brick. I think it was COVID-19 complications or something along the lines. He was in a coma. That's sad to hear, because actually I enjoyed him in this movie quite a bit. He plays 3 roles. He plays the character he played in the second one as the mayor this time. Very trauma thing to do. It, of course, takes place in Troubleville. And he plays 2 evil twins, another very trauma thing fucking to do, that, are going to fight, of course. So he plays Rick. No, not Rick. What the fuck is his name in this? He has, like I said, 3 different names. Rick and something else. So anyways, the movie opens up with showing clips from the second one and kind of carrying it on, and finishing up that storyline with the mutated squirrel and all that kind of stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's tons and tons of narration throughout, constantly breaking the fourth wall, constantly making jokes at the film's expense. Some of the stuff I like, some of the stuff I'm like, well, it feels kind of cheap if you're just going to constantly make fun of the movie you're in, yada yada yada. Sometimes pointing out the mistakes and pointing out the cheapness, like it lets the audience know that you're aware of it, but we know it's trauma, so we already know it's aware of it. Other times it just brings notice to it, so it's like, and other times it becomes kind of cheeky to the point where you're like, fucking whatever. But anyways, there's tons of narration explaining everything in the plot, lots of information, exposition dumps, where he explains that he grew up super fast, that's why he's there, now he's dating this nurse, yada, yada, yada. It's an absolutely ridiculous movie where the doctor from the second one is back. She somehow survived. Now she's working for the evil corporation again. And they essentially want both twins who are born, and they made a mistake, both twins to come together because they'll be like an ultimate nuclear reactor, and they can use it as a terrorist attempt. Of course, one twin is good, one twin is evil, because that's the way they were raised. Their hands go nuclear at times, yada, yada, yada. But the bad guys end up creating like these mutants, like monsters that is really fun, like goofy monsters, like a dog and like a fish. There's a few of them, and I like seeing that. The jokes never stop in this movie. It's a little long for what it is, like an hour 40 minutes. The jokes never stop. It's just non-stop jokes, non-stop gags, lots of stupid stuff. Brick Bronski makes me laugh in it. I like, because he's playing the three roles, but he always, like, as the good guy, he's always super sincere and goofy. There's lots of nudity, of course, so obviously some boobs, lots of butts, close-ups of butts, but this time there's fart sounds on all the butts. So yeah, I guess it's ruining your enjoyment. Maybe it's adding to your enjoyment. I don't know which, but it's a super goofy, ridiculous movie. It's just nonsense. It's just trauma at, I don't want to say its finest, because they do much better, but I enjoyed this one. I had fun with it. Like, I think it's like an improvement on part 2. I don't know what it was about part 2, but it just kind of annoyed me a little bit more than I love part 1. So this one, maybe I was used to it. But there's goofiness. There's absolutely ridiculous fight scenes. It feels bigger because there's so many characters and so many things going on in this one. But yeah, it's definitely one of these ones that probably lived in the video store. Like, everybody kind of rented it just to see like how ridiculous it was. It feels like there's a lot of Japanese influence on it too. There was a cameo by the Toxic Avenger, of course. But yeah, as far as the special features are concerned, we have intro by Lloyd Kaufman, exclusive interview with Trauma star Lisa Gale, and much more, including a commentary, which is a fake commentary. I'm about 99% sure. If it's not, I am very sorry, but it is the worst commentary ever. Like, I put it on, I was like, I want to hear a little bit of a Class of Nuke 'Em High 3. Maybe they have some interesting things to say, how, when they shot these back to back, was it originally one movie, yada, 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 they want to save them. And it's just some guy. Like, it's a joke commentary that's not funny. Like, he's just like, yeah, I made this movie. It's like, is this if it really is the director, I'm sorry, I just can't. There's no fucking way. But it's just not funny. Not funny. What a waste of time. Anyways, it's got Joe Bob Briggs' quote on there. The best Class of Nuke 'Em High movie since the last Class of Nuke 'Em High movie. It's about right. I do think it's better than part 2, but it's not better than part 1 or Return 1 or 2. But yeah, I love part 1, so it's no knock on this one. I did enjoy it. It's fun, trauma, gooey, nudity, sleazy, cheesy, self-aware nonsense. Ron Jeremy's in here too, so yeah, and it's definitely a precursor to the role he would play in Citizen Toxie as the mayor. He's not the mayor, but he's damn close in this one. So yeah, check it out if it sounds like it's up your alley. It's rather silly and goofy. Okay, this next one is a SOV from Mexico called A Child's Play. Yeah, this was kind of interesting movie. I'm going to be kind of brief with this one. I had not heard much about it. I just caught the title and I was like, that looks kind of interesting. So essentially what we have here is in Mexico during this kind of like the school. There is like in the school is kind of the main place here, and kids are being like kind of having accidents and disappearing. Like, there's been 6 already, and we're following the story of a young kid who has like struggling stuff at his home. His mother's single, and he had lost his brother at a young age, and he's kind of traumatized by the whole ordeal. So he kind of notices a young boy who's very an outcast, and he feels bad for him, and he just kind of wants to be his friend. Sometimes kids are like that. Sometimes they have a kindness in them where they see a kid and they are intrigued, like, this kid has no friends. I kind of feel bad for him. So he kind of forces himself on this kid to be friends with him, and they become friends. But soon enough, you realize there is definitely a killer going around. It has like a killer kid thing going on. You're like, one of these two is the killer, and one of them knows about it. And pretty quickly, we kind of realize which one it is, or they show it. I don't want to spoil it, I guess. Maybe that's a sense of mystery. I'm not 100% sure, really, if it is. But there's some dark stuff in here. Like they do a lot with a budget. Like it's not like something that has an amazing special effects or a lot of amazing gore or anything like that. But they do like hint at things with decently. Like at one point, one of the kids completely has a shutdown. Like he mentally shuts down and he starts to draw pictures and everything like that of like stuff he's seen. So it's kind of like those kind of hints and everything like that. It has a super downbeat ending, but as far as a Mexican SOV movie is concerned, it was a nice kind of look into like seeing a school in Mexico in the 90s and everything like that, and also just kind of how screwed up and depressing kind of this kind of stuff can be. Like it's a lot better than you would expect, and it's made on a budget, has some interesting ideas and everything like that, and for the most part the acting is not horrible. I will be honest. The acting is not horrible. You think SOV Mexico kid acting, you're like, this is going to be rough. But it's not too bad. It didn't really any noticeable kind of low points or anything like that. But that's a child's play. And I did not particularly dislike it. It is on DVD, which I did not know was. And it's from Vanguard. I'm going to try to track down a copy and pick one up when I can. I had no idea it was out on DVD. But yeah, that's a child's play from 1994. The next 1994 movie is another SOV, and it's called Red Eyes. And this is pretty obscure. It's on Letterboxd. It's not an internet movie database. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it. This is a horror anthology from 94. Really dirt cheap. I don't even remember all the stories in here, I'm going to be honest. So it's just one of those anthologies that's not super memorable to me. It starts off fairly decent. It's got kind of a funny wraparound. So there is this weird virtual reality kind of thing, I guess you'd say, like, you know, those like fun bits where you used to put like a picture show. So that's basically what it is. This kind of metalhead. Yeah, that's right. And the metal's all the soundtrack, of course, too. He picks this thing up at a local video store. He brings it home, and you have to insert quarters. So you got to rent it from the thing, and then you got to insert quarters. It's getting you twice. For the money. So basically, he takes it home, he inserts the quarters, and he sees different shorts. There's also a thing that constantly pops up about this virtual reality thing where people are looking for it, yada, yada, yada. It seems to be like there's defective or there's somebody involved, yada. I don't know what the hell's going on. So the first story, essentially, is kind of a fun little like light story about this old man, I believe, is a grandma and a grandson fishing at night at this pond, and they start to get to talking and talk about the legend of this pond, where essentially a bunch of kamikaze pilots went down from World War II Japan, went down in this, and there was this kind of strange young man that was a World War II vet, and he kind of was it Vietnam or World War II, but regardless, he kind of was crazy and never let anyone near his house, and everybody was scared of him. And one day he walked into the water and drowned himself, and he essentially says it was there to kind of stop the Japanese soldiers in that pond. So they have this whole setup, and then eventually that pays off, and I thought that was kind of cute and funny and kind of ridiculous, and I thought that was the strongest story of the bunch. We kind of keep cutting back to the wraparound, and the wraparound story involves the character not being out of change, so he constantly just goes around and starts killing people to take their change. First, it's I think a door-to-door kind of Bible collector, you know, kind of person collecting for charity. Then he orders pizza, it gets escalated, and he needs the quarters to watch the shorts because they're so fucking good. Regardless, but I too like the rapper. I think that's kind of funny, quirky, silly. Obviously not too serious. So the second story is the weirdest and most, I guess, avant-garde. It's the worst. It doesn't really work for me. It's kind of just like driving and strange and a lost child. I don't know. I guess it feels again kind of strange and everything like that. And after that, I really had a hard time keeping interest in the movie in general. Like the last story, I like this always happens to me every time I review an anthology or talk about an anthology, especially one that wasn't super memorable. I just kind of lose interest in this one. But it's kind of like a murder mystery story, not a mystery, but it's kind of like a murder story where, you know, this guy goes out and he kills somebody with his car on accident. He tries to cover everything up, and he's just a complete douchebag and everything. And of course, it's gonna be somebody's gonna get revenge on him and everything like that. So it does involve a doll, I believe, and that's kind of an effective part of the story. But like, I don't want to spend too much time on this one. He hits this young girl and takes the doll back with him, and the doll is like helping into the revenge and everything. So this one was okay. Like I said, that second story is really kind of a low point and everything. So I can't remember if there's 3 or 4 stories to this one. It runs a little long, an hour and a half, and I'm sure I forgot a story and I'll be like tortured. I feel like an asshole for it. But like I said, this one really doesn't do all that much for me. Like anthologies, it's kind of a mixed bag. But this one's it's not the worst movie of 1994. But that second story is really low. The wraparound, like not necessarily the metalhead killing people for quarters, but the other part of the organization coming for him is a little lackluster. But yeah, anyways, it is what it is. Check it out on YouTube if you're interested. Again, SOV over about 90 minutes is a little long. So yeah, that's Red Eyes. I guess the title reflects obviously the red eyes you get from watching too many of these shorts and that weird kind of fun, whatever the hell the thing is called. Yeah. Okay, we have another one from 1994, and this one's actually from Italy. And this is an absolutely ridiculous movie. I've not watched it in years. Creatures from the Abyss. Who directed this? Al Lentiri, I believe. Al Pastori. And yeah, this is AKA Plankton. So this is a super bizarre, weird movie. I believe it is an Italian, yeah. Maybe it's another co-production with another country. So I always watch my Italian movies dubbed because like early 70s, 80s, and sometimes even in the 90s, like Cemetery Man, they had great dubbing. They would have a lot of foreign actors speaking their native languages on set. But The Creatures from the Abyss is an absolutely ridiculous-ass movie from, like I said, Italy, and the dubbing is atrocious. This is one movie where I wish I could watch the Italian version and have subtitles. The dialogue and the dubbing and the character choices are so poor in this film that it actually holds it back. But I say that, but I do not absolutely hate this movie. It has a lot to enjoy. It's one of these ones that you probably would call such a good, bad movie. If that makes any sense to you guys. Mrparka feeling a little under the weather. Probably getting COVID, to be honest. I haven't had it, so it's probably my time to get it. Anyways, the plot is as follows: 5 friends they go out for a night of partying on this little raft. They get drunk. Somebody forgets the gasoline for the motor. They get stranded during this storm, and while paddling, they find a dead body. They're freaking out. They find this abandoned boat with a bunch of laboratory stuff on there. Nobody's on there, so they go to this boat, and there's this party guy who's always worried about getting laid. That's all he cares about. Absolutely over the top, ridiculous character. It's very hard to make a character like that likable or realistic in these movies, but they're always fucking there. So I think the cab driver in Evil from 2005, the Greek film, that guy's absolutely unrealistic in that situation and nonsensical, and he's always like, I gotta get laid in a zombie apocalypse. Fuck off, get out of here. This is stupid. You're taking your movie and make it stupid. And if it is goofy at the time, it's fine, but it just doesn't fit. And this movie is goofy all around. So there's that character in here. So the boat's awesome. It's a great set. I mean, the lab stuff looks awesome. On the lab is all these deformed, weird-looking fucking fish that you really don't know what the hell's going on. Obviously, something happened on this ship, right? There's a broken container where it looks like one of the fish escaped. And, there's also, bar and food and all this stuff. So they start to kind of meander around the ship for what seems like forever, 45, 50 minutes in an hour and 26-minute movie. They find a scientist who's kind of crazy in the basement, can't really speak well due to the dubbing and the dialogue and his character and his craziness. So essentially what happens is pretty soon the fish start to attack. They realize that there was some deformed or mutated radioactive plankton that these possibly prehistoric fish ate. I don't know what the fuck. But there's drawings of all of them, and they're all frozen. They start to come to life and attack, and it gets absolutely ridiculous. And what makes this movie watchable and entertaining as shit is that what happens is we get some stop-motion creatures. People are infected with nasty shit, and they start to change and become mutants. And there is one of the grossest sex scenes / rape scenes I've ever seen in a movie, where a character is kind of having sex with this woman, and he starts to turn into this fish creature, and his eyeball falls out and it falls into her mouth, and all these tentacles go crazy, and it's just a great scene, or a batshit crazy scene, way better than the rest of the movie, and I couldn't believe it. There's also some real cool stop motion that is dated but really fun to watch, and these floating fish, and the way they explain what the hell's going on, they're like, these fish didn't need to swim. They don't need to swim. It's then why were they found at the bottom of the fucking ocean if they don't need to swim? A lot of the science, it's complete nonsense. It's complete bullshit, but it's whatever. They pack in some nudity, of course. They try to get a lot of nudity in the movie. The characters are absolutely moronic, but it could be due to the dubbing or the dialogue. It's not even, you know what I mean? Whatever. It's hard to tell. Whoever did the dubbing on this movie did a very poor job. There is this weird element where there's a computer system a la Alien. Alien, how it's always what is the alien's name? Is it Nostradamus? The mother? They call it Mother. Don't they call it the mother? I don't remember what the fucking computer's name in Alien is, but essentially they try to do that, but it's in the shower, and it's always talking to them do you want your buddy lathered up? And it comes across as how they the wax ball ball cleaner and gutter balls was. Like, it comes across like that. It's so weird. This is such a bizarre fucking movie about killer fish and weird mutant stuff like Leviathan or The Thing. It's inspired by stuff like that, right? Like Leviathan or The Thing or that kind of deal. But it's just bizarre. And Alien, of course. If I were to tell you that I absolutely hate this movie, that would be a lie. I enjoy a lot of it because it's so weird and goofy and bizarre. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily a super well-made movie, and it's so bad it's good in a lot of spots. But it's just so many stuff can be unforgivable. Like at certain times, the editing is weird and off, and just it almost seems like it's not necessarily completed. Like they didn't get the funding to finally finish this fucking thing. So I don't know. Creatures from the Abyss, aka Plankton, is worth watching just of its sheer ridiculousness, and it is one of those ones that's so ridiculous. It's kind of fun. I enjoy it. I can't recommend it, but I like it. It's weird. It's goofy shit. All right, the next up from 1994, still going, is Night Scare. But the reason I had to look at that is because the AKA name is Beyond Bedlam. And this, I believe, is a UK flick, and it stars Elizabeth Hurley from the first two Austin Powers movies, and I believe she's in Bedazzled. Is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. And Craig Fairbrass. And I will always remember Craig Fairbrass because his character in Cliffhanger. I was a mighty good striker. He's great in that movie as an asshole. Season's over, asshole. Anyways, yeah, this is a strange film. I will admit that watching it, like, I felt bad because I had seen this before years back on VHS. Obviously, I had the VHS. And it's just the quality. Like, the picture quality's not great. It's only been on VHS. Maybe a shoddy DVD or broadcast on TV or something like that. But the audio wasn't mixed quite great. That's probably just due to the releases it's had. So, like, the sound effects kind of overpower a lot of the dialogue. And I'm already kind of, like, having these thick British accents in there. So, it was not necessarily the easiest to hear, which hurts it a little bit for me, which is unfortunate because I can't really give this movie 100% a fair shake, I don't think. So Beyond Bedlam kind of is in the same vein as something like I would, like Nightmare on Elm Street and a little bit kind of, or The Ugly, or Retribution from 1987, if you guys seen Retribution, where a killer can kind of control throughout. Anyways, so Elizabeth Hurley, is a scientist, and she has her demons, as this Craig Fairbrass, who is a cop who has his demons. So Elizabeth Hurley, there's the two main characters in this, is doing experiments on a serial killer who is caught that Craig Fairbrass has a history with, who doesn't like Fairbrass. So basically, she decides to give him some experimental medication that she's tested on herself. And this experimental medication kind of lets him kind of create his own weird dream world where he can enter people's dreams or enter their world or something along those lines. It's very bizarre. And Elizabeth Hurley is taking the drug. And at one point, Craig gets the drug too. So it enters them in this weird kind of surreal nightmare where, like, a Hannibal Lecter style Freddy Krueger is kind of controlling the strings and everything like that. Now, I know what people are thinking, oh, this sounds like it's really cool and has some really great ideas, and it does have some cool ideas and concepts and everything like that, but it is fairly typical in a lot of ways too. Nothing that we haven't seen before, of course, but the cinematography, I guess, is not necessarily bad. Like, some of the shots are nice, especially when they're like long hallways and creepy set designs and everything. The picture quality that I've seen of this movie never looks good. So, like, when you track it out, it doesn't look great. So it's hard to give it a fair shake on the quality in itself, right? It does seem a little meandering, feels like a little repetitive at times. I like the actor Craig Fairbrass. Like I said, I've always enjoyed him in Cliffhanger. I thought he was a great asshole. And I thought he was good in Avengement with, Scott Adkins. I thought he was a very good bad guy in that. Elizabeth Hurley is a good actress too, as far as what little bit I've seen her in. I don't think that either of them are amazing in the film. But this movie also listed as kind of like a comedy, because there is some comedy beats, right? Like, the killer uses, like, people from their past to kind of fuck with them or screw with them, including Craig Fairbrass's mother. And she's always offering them tea, which is kind of done in a comic way. You need to put on some weight. And he's like, what are you talking about, Mom? I'm 15 stone. And it's just like, that kind of shit's very funny because Craig is like a big, buff, muscular guy in this movie. Takes care of himself. The killer is creepy, like, he has the Hannibal Lecter thing down. That's obviously what they're going for. He's like that creepy, cerebral kind of psychopath, but he can turn brutal any second. It just doesn't 100% work for me. And that's probably due to, just the movie not really having a great release and not being able to hear everything or see everything as you should. Like I said, the concept is cool enough. It's nothing exactly 100% new. Like I said, Retribution kind of has some similarities. The Ugly, which came out 4 years later, I think 98. I believe the killer kind of can leave his cell through the people's mind. And even like I feel like The Cell, which I've not seen, but I've heard talked about, kind of you enter the killer's kind of crazy mind. I could see maybe possibly being that. I think Ice from the Sun has some similarities of being trapped in like the weird kind of killer worlds and stuff like that. Been a while since I watched that. I keep bringing that movie up because I'm hoping it gets a release. Please release Ice from the Sun. But yeah, so like, and of course the Nightmare on Elm Street aspects. There's just a lot of stupid shit like she ejects Craig with, you trust me. It's just like, you just injected me with this, I'm going to kill you. But yeah, anyways, it's not a great movie. It's not absolutely horrible. Like I said, I would like to see it get a decent release so I can really assess it better. And it's crazy to think, like, we used to watch so many movies on VHS, and we've been spoiled by a lot of these companies because they're remastering a lot of these movies. They're considered pure shit. People consider them garbage for years. They have like 2.5s on Internet Movie Database. And then they finally get this nice remastered Blu-ray, and people are like, oh, there is real cinematography in here, or really kind of good moments and everything. It gives movies kind of a second life, and I wouldn't mind seeing this get a second life, or at least another reassessment somewhere down the line beyond Bedlam or Night Scare, because I didn't particularly enjoy it this time around, and I didn't enjoy it the first time either. But like I said, I'm watching a crummy VHS and stuff like that. It's hard to hear and everything. So anyways, and again, like I said, the performances aren't super strong. They're not horrible. Obviously, they're all three capable actors, the leads in this one, but it could have used a little bit more. So yeah. Okay, we have another British film from 1994 here, and this one's actually put out by Unearthed Films. I say the English answer to Man Bites Dog. I don't know necessarily about that, but I do see some poignant moments in here and stuff, and craziness. So yeah, Boy Meets Girl. This is by a guy. What was his name? Ray Brady, which I know he went on to do other films. I believe he's a filmmaker that's done some other films as well. This is the only one I'm super familiar with, and this is a first time watch. So I popped this in. And the aesthetic kind of like, it starts off with like a guy who picked up a girl from a bar, and right on the cover I know it's kind of be like a lot of torture in here, and I was like, well, this will be different because usually you watch so many movies where women are tortured and killed, and now we're going to see kind of a difference where a woman tortures and kills a man. So this guy, the British guy, well, he's picked up, I say that because he's picked up by what he thinks is a French woman, and that strange attraction to, oh, it's different, it's exotic, is kind of getting him. I think is what he thinks, at least, or they want you to think he thinks in a movie. So essentially, he's sitting down and he's gonna have one night stand with this woman. She puts him to tape that seems to be a little bit extreme for his liking, pornographic tape. He's kind of confused. Before long, he realizes, he's not feeling well. He passes out, wakes up tied to this chair, and this is pretty much where the rest of the movie takes place, is in this chair. And it starts to go on where she's kind of poking and probing him and saying all these horrible things to him. She does a lot of these fucked up mind tricks involving blood and possibly HIV. It is the 90s. I mean, there was a couple movies involving HIV from this year, bringing up Love minus Zero equal Infinity, and of course LA AIDS Jabber. So, AIDS is still obviously in the conscious. It still is now, I imagine. But 90s, I feel like it was something that everybody talked about constantly. So, like, starts to kind of degrade him mentally and eventually physically. But there's a turn in this movie about halfway through where things start to change, and there's a new kind of character that enters. And at first, you don't like this guy. I mean, you might have some sympathy for him because what he's in right now, and you don't really like either of the characters. Like, she's saying all these things, the characters are saying all these things about a society, and what you do is horrible, one night stands with a wife and kids and all that kind of thing. And as it goes on, you start to think that maybe he did something and this is revenge, but it goes on further than that, and you're like, it gets a little bit more interesting. It kind of was interesting to me at points, like where my allegiance is. I don't really have allegiance to any of the characters in the movie, but where like my sympathies lay. You know what I mean? Like, at first I was like, well, he seems like a complete asshole. Not that he deserves to be tortured, but at first you're like, well, let him go. And then a little bit longer, you're like, he's an asshole. And then you start to like kind of look at the artist types who are doing this. And you're like, what are you doing this for? You seem like, as much as you're like kind of condemning this life, or, the life of everyday people and everything in your way, you become like this alternative sheep, I guess I'll say, in a way that you're saying these people just follow this structure and believe this kind of whatever. But it goes on further, and you realize it's not really for that anything. Like, and it becomes a little bit more senseful to me of these kind of people that they do. But yeah, the ending I just thought was just a little bit different, and I caught me and more. Like, and I just felt like it was just a little bit kind of screwed up. Like they do these tortures, of course, like the cigarette torture that's on the cover and everything, but I feel like the second half of the movie is much more interesting and has a little bit more to offer. They do play with the, obviously, like the kind of snuff aesthetic too. Like the initial movie, I believe, shot on film for sure, like it has grain and everything, but you'll get a point of view through the actual camera too, because they're recording all this stuff, so it kind of adds that snuff aesthetic to it, which I can really enjoy. Although I do like it more so used in smaller doses than larger doses, like as far as this film is concerned. And like I feel like a lot of times when they use that snuff aesthetic through the camera's point of view, they use that raw audio from that. So again, the dialogue is a little harder to hear, which adds to the element too. But this movie has a lot of dialogue, a lot of monologues and everything like that and stuff, and people kind of saying why they're doing things, but in the end it would just be kind of more bullshit too, right? But Boy Meets Girl has its moments. It's interesting enough, and and like I said, it's not often you see, like, it's not just that too, like a girl torture a guy throughout the entire movie, but she's like constantly berating him with these questions and all this kind of stuff too. And she says kind of one thing, like, I don't care if you're, conservative or a terrorist or anything, that's not the reason I'm doing this. So like you could kind of grasp a little bit there too. And anyways, I thought this was interesting enough to check out, and I'm glad I finally watched it. On Earth put out the DVD. I believe it is out of print, but you can rent it on Vimeo from the director's actual account, the film and everything like that. So yeah, check it out if it sounds like it's up your alley. Okay, the last one from 1994 is The Puppet Masters, and a lot of people immediately compare this to something like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I know that there was a 90s Invasion of the Body Snatchers as well by Abel Ferreira. But so The Puppet Masters, I believe, was a short story written around the same time the Invasion of the Body Snatchers was written. It might have actually came out first. So those stories were both written around the same time. So it's kind of like to say The Puppet Masters is a ripoff of the Body Snatchers is not exactly accurate. To say maybe this was made because of the the Body Snatchers movie was made, whatever. But these stories are kind of timeless. Essentially, this is a body snatcher story where people are taken over by a space entity, right? So, in the very beginning, a spacecraft crashes, and we get the small town feel. These three kind of kids go there to try to uncover it, to look at what it is. And fairly quickly, Donald Sutherland and some other agents are dispatched, and we realize that there is some sort of parasite in there that's taking over people, yada, 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 and their intent is to kind of take over the world. So I love these kind of stories. They're always scary. They always freak me out. I love all three of the Body Snatchers, the 50s, the 70s, and the 90s. I think they're all great movies. Never seen the 2000s one. But I really enjoyed this Puppet Masters movies, too. So it starts off a lot of heavy action in the very beginning. Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Car chases, them escaping this small town that's kind of been taken over and everything like that. I will mention the cast because I find it a very interesting cast. We have Donald Sutherland, who starred in the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, so it's like paying homage to that movie. We have Keith David, who's one of my favorite actors, who starred in The Thing from 1982, so it's paying homage to that movie. And then we have Yaphet Kotto, who starred in Alien, paying homage to that movie. So literally, it's paying homage to three of the greatest science fiction movies ever made. And I feel like the casting had to be done on purpose, because you got Sutherland, Keith David, Yaphet Kotto, and it's just and it's got a really good cast besides that as well. You add in Will Patton in here, Andy Robinson from Hellraiser, and Will Patton's in a lot of great stuff. He was just in Halloween Kills and a couple other movies, so he's in Armageddon. Will Patton's a great actor. Even if you don't love the movies, Will Patton's always solid in there. So yeah, it's got also a lot of more memorable faces too. I know I'm missing out on a couple people. I definitely want to look at the back here too. Yeah, Eric Thal, the lead actor in here, I'm not super familiar with either. But yeah, I know I'm missing some. I wanted to mention Julia Warner and Richard Belzer, of course, is a very memorable character. But yeah, it's just scary trying to figure out who has the puppet master on them. And the design of the puppet masters in here is really great stuff. It's like this nasty parasite latches onto your back and attaches into your brain. And it controls you, but it also gives you a high because it opens up your mind in this hive mentality. Similar to Slither, how they're all connected in a hive and everything like that. But it's just scary how it unfolds and everything like that. Donald Sutherland's really good in the film. It is a little long in the twos. It's like an hour 45 or something along the lines. You could probably cut 10-15 minutes out of this. The end is very kind of pretty intense and good special effects when they actually go into the hive and everything to end it. Like, I know this isn't as good as, you know, the 70s or 50s Body Snatchers, but it's on the level of something like the 90s Body Snatchers, I would say, by Bel Ferrer. Maybe, I don't know which one I prefer, probably the Body Snatchers, but I caught myself really enjoying this, and it was like an action sci-fi horror movie that has genuinely scary moments with a fantastic cast, you know? So, like, it just keeps you guessing. It never lets you down, and anyways like that. So, I really like this. I don't have all that much to say about it. Like, the interesting stuff come from how the creature works, you know? Like I said, I like these kind of crazy science fiction horror films that have these big ideas, like the Quatermass movies and everything. And I really should read the original book, The Puppet Masters, the short story. And I would like to read the original short story, The Body Snatchers. I'm sure I would love both of them, as I like the adaptations that were made from them. But Kino put this one out, and it looked great. It sounded great. I've been impressed with their output. And there's a lot of special features on here. Audio commentary by the director Stuart Orme, with film editor David Yardley, Robert A. Heinlein, a Grand Puppet Master documentary, Get Slug with Julie Warner, Strange Adventure with Keith David, Alien Me, Alien You, Richard Belzer, Larry Odin Pulls the Strings, Practical Effects of the Puppet Master, Science, Fantasy, and Softcore Porn, Limited Edition booklet essay from Samuel R. Delaney. Newly commissioned art by Jacob Phillips, animated photo gallery, creature designs, image, limited edition O-card, slipcase, reversible art, 5.1 surround and 2-point stereo. And you're going to want that 5.1 surround sound, because there's explosions, helicopters, car chases, all that kind of good stuff that make that thing pop out. Anyways, Puppet Masters, very fun movie from 1994. I recommend it. Hey guys, we're here for You Ain't Seen. It was another one of my kind of cheats.
Lame.
It was a 94 movie I liked, and I was rewatching. I have not seen it in a long time. It's a Hong Kong movie, and this was before I started like watching a lot more Hong Kong movies. In recent years, I actually started popping in a lot more Hong Kong movies and watching them, and I had like a handful that I had watched and I've always enjoyed. And this was one of them. This is Red to Kill, directed by Billy Tang, who actually directed another famous Cat 3 Hong Kong movie called Dr. Lamb. This is a Cat 3 film as well, Category 3, which is the rating system, kind of the most extreme rating system, like an NC-17 or an X rating, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Billy Tang also, I said, directed Dr. Lamb, but he also directed another 1994 kind of horror exploitation film in Brother of Darkness, which is interesting because Brother of Darkness actually has the lead female in it from this film.
Oh, really?
And it's funny that Daughter of Darkness has the beefy... Is it the beefy? No, has the another... which actor is it from Brother of Darkness from this movie? There's another actor. Or actress, I should say. Money Lowe, I believe, is in that. And I think that... so this lead actress is in Daughter of Darkness and Brother of Darkness. The kind of teacher... The social worker guy, the male guy, he's not a teacher, is in Daughter of Darkness 2, which is insane. And then the social worker in this movie is in Daughter of Darkness, and Billy Tang directed Brother of Darkness, Dr. Lamb, and Red to Kill. So we have a bunch of connections. That's why it can be really confusing when you're talking about actors and actresses and directors from Hong Kong during this time period, because there's not that many people that were doing all these different movies. Right. There's a lot of them, but they have to share similar cast, similar plots, similar kind of, I guess, keywords in their description. So Red to Kill is, it's one of these movies that, like all Hong Kong films, that the opening, it has like this quote that suggests that it's going to tackle an issue kind of a severe, kind of touchy subject, and kind of tackle it with some respect. I would say that Mark of the Devil does the same thing. Although Mark of the Devil, I think, is a little bit more successful at pointing out hypocrisy and stuff like that. And I will say that Red to Kill is very effective at what it does, but it does follow the formula of kind of being like comedic when it shouldn't be, and then being very exploitative and extreme, and then kind of doing that whole dramatic thing at the end where you're like, this is just really depressing.
Right.
So Red to Kill follows the story of a poor girl who is slightly mentally kind of stunted, and her father dies. We don't see it. A social worker who just experienced a really harsh kind of moment, who wants to quit, it kind of takes on this last case, shows up to her house, and she's got to take her to a home. And the home is for people that are more severely mentally handicapped than herself. What happens is there is also a serial rapist going around, serial rapist killer in the area. And this also correlates with two movies that were released in Hong Kong from 1994 called Serial Rapist and Portrait of a Serial Rapist, which were based on a true case, an incident that took place in 1993, where a serial rapist kind of raped several women and killed a couple in the process. And I can't help but think that this is probably partially kind of influenced by that, or that case.
Yeah.
But all Hong Kong movies from this period, especially Cat 3 movies, kind of contain rape. I mean, that's a sure way to get a Cat 3 rated title right there. So, yeah, you guys know that this is unfortunately going to happen. The psychology of the killer is absolutely insane in this movie, but we kind of expect it. The killer, every time they see red, they cannot control themselves, and they violently attack and rape the person. One day, our poor character here, who's already been through so much, wears a red dress to practice her dancing, and she gets raped. And that's pretty much the kind of story of this, and it's a showdown between the social worker, the rape victim, and the crazy, muscle-bound rapist, who actually also is another character in the movie, which I will not spoil.
Right.
What'd you think?
I don't know if I can really add to this.
Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
And ask you some questions? So the one thing that kind of strikes me crazy is like there's these heartwarming moments that I feel like they are sometimes played for laughs when they shouldn't be. Like some of the characters portraying mentally handicapped people are a little over the top. Like
right.
Some are doing just kind of this, like to extreme levels where you're like, this is never, and this goes without saying, this kind of stupid shit where it's like, this wouldn't be made today, or this is not going to fly in today's society. This is not going to be made today. Even a few years back, they made that Ringer with Johnny Knoxville, and people were like, yeah, this probably shouldn't have been fucking made either, where he portrays as somebody who's slow. I didn't see it, so I don't know how it plays, but you know how that shit kind of goes. So, yeah, there's times when some of the mentally handicapped characters are just so over the top, and it's so, I would say, what's the word I'm looking? Inappropriate. And it strikes a, I can't believe this fucking thing exists moment in me, and I do kind of laugh at the ridiculousness of it. That's kind of it's like a nervous reaction where I can't believe this fucking thing exists. The rape scenes are filmed crazy. Like any Hong Kong movie, there's lots of like blue lighting and very stylized filmmaking approach, and it's just bonkers. Like,
yeah, some of the scenes are shot really well.
I love how it's shot personally.
I like the main social worker. I think that she does a good job acting. The minor cast is just. I guess this movie didn't have to take place, I think, necessarily with the people that it took place with.
It absolutely did. And an opening thing that says to take a look at people with mental illness and because there's a whole sideline story in here, and you feel like this is how it got maybe the somewhat grounded or social message in here where the rapist is committing all these rapes near a place where there's a lot of people being held. It's not a halfway house because they're not criminals, but mentally people that have nowhere to go being taken care of, and the people that live there believe it's the mentally handicapped people committing the rapes. So everybody points the fingers at them. In reality, they actually stop a rape at one point and kind of save the day. And it's just kind of that point out, don't just blame somebody because they're slow or different than you. And that is there. But the movie is just almost ruthless in its approach a lot of ways. From the opening of the woman jumping from the building, committing the suicide, which is dark, to the rapes. The rapes are weird. And we mentioned that they're sexualized for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, big time. And that's Hong Kong style, the sexualized rapes and everything like that. But it focuses not only on the rape victim, but the rapist himself. Because he's a very muscular and super handsome character. So
yeah.
And he's super psychologically damaged. We get into his head and everything. But it focuses on his their sweaty bodies a lot, and it's just, I mean, it's crazy. The rape scenes in this are pretty crazy and over the top, I would say.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you want to watch it for the rape scenes, you can watch it for the rape scenes.
What are you talking about? I'm a big fan of rape revenge films in general, and this is that.
Right.
But also it's that moment where you just watch to see how far they're gonna go. And how crazy. There's also good action usually in these movies. Hong Kong movies are unlike any other, to be honest.
I mean, see, there isn't a whole lot of action in this, and I think the rapist is an action star.
I believe he is. Yeah. He's in a handful of movies.
He's in quite a bit. I think he's technically Vietnamese.
Is he?
Yeah, I think so. But so they use the mental deficiency to kind of when there's a scene that happens in a court to like, oh, she can't defend herself,
which happens in Brother of Darkness as well. There's
right.
a court scene.
But the fact of the matter is, like, she doesn't need to be mentally deficient for that scene to play out, because that's kind of like how all rape plays out in
a lot
court.
of it with the court and everything.
You know, it's, well, I mean, so you just have this story that you know uses, you know, these types of people, and they don't really have any agency in the movie.
She does form bonds with all the mentally handicapped people, and you do get to know them. And, like, she almost brings this entire community together, and they're like a family unit. So when the ending actually happens, which I think, I don't know, we can skip or spoil, or we can't spoil. When the ending actually happens, you're just like, that's so heartless and ruthless. Like, it's a really heartless movie in a lot of ways, the ending. Like, but I feel sympathy for the characters and everything. So, like, it makes me feel bad. At the end of the film, like, it somehow, I do like the main character. I feel bad for her.
I laughed at the ending of Mice and Men.
So we know what that means with Jeremy.
Yeah.
If anybody's seen Of Mice and Men or this movie, you know that he thinks it's funny when certain people are hurt. That's not funny.
A group of people lose their shit and then just start tearing down the fucking walls.
Is it played for comedy?
I don't know if it's played for comedy or not. If it's played for comedy, I kind of feel bad, but it's like...
It's trashy if it's played for comedy, but it's also... I don't know how over the top it is in concern to reality. Right. Like, there is a part in... I think it's just so funny because, to someone like you, who's sick, because it's so ridiculous. I laugh at sick things too, but it's just so insane. These movies are so insane that you see things like that and you're just like, what in the fuck? The music is, like I said, is great. Like, it's got a very 80s style music score to it. And like I said, when like the rapes and stuff in the nighttime attacks take place, there's like a great blue tint. I love the flashback to what we see the killer. I mean, like, you get the psychology of killers in movies. They're always ridiculous. So, like, the triggering effect for him is if he sees red, he loses it, which actually is insane. Like, so anybody wearing red, there's this really horrible part where there's like a girl coming home from school. She's like 8 or 9, and she like and like she's wearing red, and you're just like, oh no, like, it gets you very worried for that moment. But like I said, I like the three leads really kind of carry this movie. I think they all do a very good job.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I like the flashback quite a bit, and it's just kind of crazy. It's also one of the more, I guess it's infamous. It's a fairly infamous movie, obviously. The lead actress I like, and there's the moment after the rape, which I think is important to show. Mm-hmm. Like, they do an I Spit on Your Grave when she's in the shower, and she has the recovery state, which I always thought was really what the remake was a big part of. What that was missing was that idea to show that the person, you know, struggling with this. You know, it's not just she's raped and she goes away and then she comes back a superhero. No, she had to rebuild herself up and, you know, do all those moments. Like, so, like, they have that moment of her in the shower where she believes she's on clean, and it's just like, it went too far. Like, I was like, there's going to be blood, but it comes from a different source, which I just couldn't believe was in there. Because, like I said, the Hong Kong movies, I know a lot of people are always complaining and stuff about how, like, Japanese films, if they have nudity, a lot of the pubes will be blurred, or they do certain things that alter the footage. Hong Kong is not that. Hong Kong is, like I said, per film in this time period in the 90s, I don't think that anybody was putting out as many hardcore films. No. Like, and I don't mean hardcore as in porno. I mean hardcore as in content matter being questionable. Right. Would you agree?
Well, it's so weird because then you look at China today and it's like everything is censored.
Well, China take over Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is still in British control, which is strange because Britain would never allow something like Red to Kill to be made in the 90s. If you look at Britain's movies, like the most extreme one is like Boy Meets Girl, which is extreme. It's torture and stuff like that. But a lot of their other stuff, I just can't see it ever.
You know, I think that like
that
compared to the other Cat 3 films that I've seen,
Told Story, Ebola Syndrome.
Ebola Syndrome. Even like, did we watch Chinese Ghost Story or did we watch?
That's Erotic Ghost Story.
Erotic Ghost Story.
I believe you saw Erotic Ghost Story.
Okay, you know, but I feel like this one was a little bit lacking in terms of like the fun adventure or like.
I mean, Untold Story isn't fun.
Well, but you know, like that has like.
It has that great set piece when he's running from the cops.
It has the set piece. It has like the mystery to it. You know, I think that our cats are fighting, and it's really pathetic.
The two really heavy ones, and it looks really funny.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we got distracted.
Sorry.
But, so this one is, I think, just a bit weaker than the other ones I've seen.
I would disagree. And also, it could be from fondness of it, from seeing it, like a decade ago, more than a decade ago, and just growing that connection to how weird and crazy it was. And it was one of the first Hong Kong movies I saw. So I've always liked it. I've always thought it was a good film. I always understand why people... Again, this is something that if people are like, this is highly offensive. And I kind of live to be offended in movies. Like, I don't really get offended. Mm-hmm. But when they push those buttons, I'm just in... it's become almost like a documented thing for me. Like, where I have to document just the crazy things that happen in movies. And it just interests me just to know it exists. Like, well, they did this and see how it went and the reaction to it and stuff. And what makes me sad is there's just so much... Not much information on Hong Kong films. Like, if you, research so many other films that, like, you can find books written on Cannibal Holocaust and stuff like that, but you can't find much on Hong Kong films. It's strange to me.
Well, Hong Kong is a country that technically doesn't exist anymore. No. It's weird, but...
It is weird.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me sad.
Even now, there's, tensions, as to, like, what its state will end up being, because before it was like, yeah, we have control, but, like, not, like, control. Now it's, reaching more and more, and so it's like, what happens to Hong Kong?
Exactly. Anyways, I like it. I would give it an 8 out of 10.
3 out of 5.
Okay, so that's a movie that you don't think's bad, but you don't necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I seen better. I seen Cat 3 titles that I liked better. This isn't a bad movie, but it is just like a very.
Are you missing Anthony Wong in it?
It's not even Anthony Wong. It's just like I'm not sure why I'm watching this. It's like is it the rape? Am I watching it for the rape? Am I watching it
for the social message?
Children? Yeah, what social message? I've seen that.
There is a social message. No, they're basically saying that you shouldn't pick on those people, or you shouldn't judge them before, or blame them for crimes they didn't commit, and they end up being heroic. And some of the best people in the movie are the mentally handicapped people. They're the nicest. They're the best. They don't do anything wrong.
I think that's already like a
well, maybe 1994, but also to get that message across, you can do some exploitation. And how many movies? I know this is going to be weird, and this is not a plus or anything. It's just a question. How many movies have somebody mentally handicapped being raped in it?
I don't know. I've never looked that up.
I don't know. I think Gummo qualifies. I mean, if you're putting a mentally handicapped person for prostitution, that's rape to me. I mean, that is definitely rape. So, like, what else is there?
I guess that's the subject matter, but it's like,
all right, so guys, the question of the week is, how many movies do have mentally handicapped people being raped? No, don't answer that.
Right.
There's got to be a few. Anyways, what are we watching next week?
I had a whole list picked out. I kind of want to watch Romeo and Juliet because I've never seen it.
That's such an odd pick from you. That's a pick that I would make you watch. But I have no problem of watching Romeo and Juliet. Right. I've seen that a handful of times.
So let's do Romeo and Juliet, and
I'm happy with that one.
You're happy with that one?
I just watched Surf
Nazis.
I'm
not trying to make you miserable. The moment you put The Shining on here, the show's done.
No. See this? See what I have to deal with? The guy's picking Romeo and Juliet. He won't watch The Shining.
I had to watch Red to Kill.
Red to Kill is fine. I like it more than Romeo and Juliet.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll find out.
Well, I mean, I did watch Surf Nazis Must Die this week and Class of Nuke 'Em High Part 3, so I'm in trauma mode, so...
Well, it was the Class of Nuke 'Em High watching that I was like...
Part 3?
Is that humanoids or...
Yeah, the Class of Nuke 'Em High Part... I should correct this and make sure I get it right because I messed up that one time and I said Class of Nuke 'Em High 2, The Substitute, when I was referring to Class of 1999 Part 2, The Substitute, and for some reason they put it in a documentary to make me look like a stupid fuck. But it's Class of Nuke 'Em High Part 3, The Good, The Bad, The Subhumanoid.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a tangent there. You think when you make a mistake, they're not going to put it in on purpose. I didn't watch it, but that's what it sounds like. Anyways, I shouldn't have made the mistake in the first place. When I was editing, I should have cut it out. But, yeah, that's it. You don't like this movie, I do. We're watching Romeo and Juliet next week.
Right.
All right, let's get into these questions, answers, all that good stuff. And again, I will mention that I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. I'm starting to lose my voice. Probably should go get a rapid test, huh? So let's get into this. Ken Coakley. The most obvious, basically, I asked you guys what some of your most anticipated movies, horror movies, whatever, from 2022 are going to be. Ken Coakley. The most obvious of the upcoming horror movies to look forward to is Halloween Ends, because the 2018 film stands as a very good film, even though the source material is old. I saw a trailer for a film called The Black Phone. Looks interesting. There's a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming this year that's supposed to be a direct sequel to the 74 film. Looks like it would be look good as a double feature with Black Phone, as both films take place in the 70s. The new Jeepers Creepers looks interesting and could benefit from being the first Jeepers Creepers film made without the involvement of its controversial creator, Victor Salva. I'm looking forward to The Crooked Man, which is the next film in the Conjuring universe. I am somewhat curious about Hellraiser. They have a woman playing Pinhead. In the novella, Pinhead was not gender specific, but was supposed to have a female voice. Yeah, I'm very interested in Hellraiser. That is one that I completely forgot about. I am so interested in that movie. Because I love the original first two, and I don't mind 3. But it's just such an interesting movie that could take in different places, and I don't want to see it continued in the series that it's in. Isimisio, I'll be honest, I don't know anything about any 2022 horror movies other than the big names. It's usually the indies that come out with the nice gems, though, and I catch me off guard. Tokyo Decadence sounds like it's up my alley. I love Phantasm 1-3, but I haven't seen the rest. Phantasm 2 especially. Hopefully, you've successfully convinced Jeremy to watch Red to Kill. Even if he ends up being appalled by the film, it's still very much worth it to hear his reaction. He actually didn't have as much to say as I would have liked. What the flick? I can't wait for the live-action Amara movie. Takaki Waititi is set to direct. Not familiar with that. Martine VP. Thanks for another informative episode. You got me really interested in Nobody. Can't believe Halloween Kills made number 2 spot in listeners' list, but the numbers don't lie. Looking forward to the new Predator movie this year. Ooh, new one? Yeah, I mean, I don't love Halloween Kills, but I don't hate it, and I don't hate it. The more I hear people absolutely in love with this movie, like, I can hear the genuine joy in their voice, and it's just, I'm happy they're happy. I don't hate it. I would watch it again. Might pick it up. It's fun. It's a fun movie for me, and I think people are just looking like, like, fuck it, man. I just want to see Michael Myers kill a bunch of people and have fun with it. They don't. So I can see that it delivered on what they wanted for all these years. Okay, Snake-Eyed PJ Phillips. If Evil Dead Rises gets a 2022 release, then I would be most excited to see that, along with Hellraiser. What about you, Dave? Hellraiser, of course. The Sadness is my number 1. The Sadness looks insane. It just looks violent, crazy. I am mildly interested in the Evil Dead and the Texas Chainsaw movies, just because I'm like, what the fuck are they going to do? Why not? So I am interested in those as well. And I wouldn't mind watching the new Terrifier movie. I know people don't like the first one, but it's supposed to be brought up in craziness. I kid. When I first saw you mentioning Future Shock, I at first thought it was a 1972 documentary hosted by Orson Welles. I don't know that one. Zach Nolan, Jeremy, please be open to The Shining someday. I don't know if it's going to happen, Zach. I try. Indie Phantom, Tokyo Decadence is one I have on VHS, and that cover was a classic. Not a bad festival-type film. Some nice perversion and a sweet character. Yeah, like that cover, like I said, when I looked through those old movie books, I'd be like, like, it catches your attention. You're just like, what is this? Dr. Hyder, Singapore Sling is excellent jerk material. Ooh, man. I don't think I could get it up for that one. Dr. Gilag, Phantasm, exclamation point. Uzi Suicide 666. Galaxy Express 999 is a 10 out of 10. Look into it. I think he's referring to the anime me and Jeremy covered last week. Rob Kopinski, The Sadness. Peter McCain, Robert. He's like, yeah, Rob Kopinski talks about it. I saw Rue Moore did a really awesome story on it, a cover piece. In fact, I'm so psyched to see this thing. Somebody, Peter McCain replies, I hear it's like Crossed, which I've been reading, so I hope it lives up to the hype. Cross is a super violent graphic novel, if anybody's not read it. David Gibson, hands down, The Northman. I am in love with Eggers' first 2 films. Alec DaVincio, now that Scream is out, Nope is probably my most anticipated. That's a Jordan Peele movie. Peter McCain, Dune Part 2, Mad God would be great, is an amazing... Mad God would be great is an amazing film you should check out. That's about it as far as new films I'm aware are coming out. Mad God I definitely want to see, the Phil Tippett. Peter England, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare on Elm Street, and The Northman. He is not from the United States, so those first 2 have not been released in his country yet. Robert D., Terrifier 2, Evil Dead Rises, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Scott Shermer, Jurassic World 3, sue me. That's fine. Brandon Young for 2022, The Northman and the Sadness. I don't read movie news or watch trailers, so I don't know what else is coming out. Nick Mua. I'm looking forward to at least a few 2022 horror releases. 1, Halloween Ends, just to see if this franchise will end with this one. 2, Salem's Lot at least. It will have Bill Sadler as Mr. Barlow. 3, Wolf Creek the Third. Who can resist John Jarrett's insanely infectious giggle? Old Man, featuring Stephen Lang and Mark Center, directed by Lucky McKee. Need I say more, Sir Parka? Questions. Would you watch War and Peace if it was a short film? I'm going to watch it anyways. I'm just kidding. It's just hard to want. Yes, I would watch it. I'd be more inclined to watch it if it was a short film. 2, does it ever annoy you when yet another horror film is based on a true story? Not really. I mean, back in the day, I used to laugh at it because everything was based on a true story. You just know it is. Take it with a grain of salt. Have you seen Scream 5, sir? Yet? If so, any insights, comments? No, if I do, I will review it. I still need to watch Scream 4, though. Lastly, you made me curious about Phantasm franchise. I think I'll check it out ASAP. Gracias for broadening our horizons. No, I mean, Phantasm, you got to watch the first 2 at least. And if you like it, watch the third one. David Luton. Nope. The Northman, Sadness, and Evil Dead Rise so far. I got to apologize, guys. Throat is killing me. Vincent Pernira, Clerks 3. Who's in that movie, and Dario Argento's Black Glasses. Me too, for that. Corey Walter, literally nothing. Not trying to be funny, but been collecting VHS ever since the new movie. I see it honestly disappointing. Everything that hypes me up is re-release of old shit. Shit, I take that back. Forgot about Evil Dead Rises. Shajin Barbarian, I'm freaking stoked about the Toxic Avenger remake. The Toxic Avenger is my favorite movies, and I freaking Toxie tattoo, and I don't think it will be better than the original, but I do think it's going to be fun to watch. Yeah, I am interested in that too. Tim Walker, 8 for Silver. The Cursed, that's AK. The Sadness, Hellbender, and X. Josh Hayes, looking forward to The Sadness. Finally, something like cross-comic adaptation. I pre-ordered the German DVD. Chrisma, that is a great movie. And he says, if the screenings, John Hayes, if the screenings near me, I would have went. The German DVD ships in April. Hopefully it has English captions. I am watching either way. Chris Ma posted a release of an old movie, The Cross of Seven Jewels. Troy Howarth, Killers of the Flower Moon. That's a Scorsese. The Palace, Polanski. And Black Glasses by Argento. John Soloway, it's unpopular, but the new Texas Chainsaw on Netflix. Besides the 4th one, I love everything Texas Chainsaw. And Wolf Creek 3. Yeah, man, I am interested in the Texas Chainsaw. Part 4 I do not like either, and I have to rewatch it for 94. Jeremy R., Ron Perlman Sex Tape. Stop it. Steve Friedel, the Dave James Parker autobiography. I ask him who's playing me. He says Sean Penn. I tell him I'd rather it be Chris. And then Shane Glass, John Wick 4, and Jurassic World 3. So the question of the week this week is, I'm going to ask you your top 5 favorite horror directors. I'm not going to read them all off. If you want to leave reasons, I can, but I probably won't read everything. I am going to do rank them. So rank all your top 5. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with everyone's top 20, 21 movies. So like you give me your number 1 director will get 5 points. Your number 2 will get 4. And I'm going to rank them all and see who comes out as the top 5 or 10 favorite horror directors out of everybody. So just do that. Top 5. I'm not counting anything past 5, and please rank them. That would be great. So yeah, let's see who the top 5 horror film directors who's the most popular out of my listeners and the people that decide to answer on Facebook. Let's hop into this update. Okay, let's hop into this update. I got my Vinegar Syndrome January stuff, so it's quite a bit here, but we're going to start off with Chopper, import from the UK. I mean, not from the UK, this is from Australia, my bad. This is a biopic about Chopper, who is a famous, felon or whatever, criminal. I've never seen this. I did see part of this years back. I had a VHS. Somebody picked it for a Patreon pick, and I was getting ready to try to rent it, and there was just nowhere to rent this sucker, and I was just like, screw it. I'll just go buy the Blu-ray and import it. Good price, came very quick. So then we have The Brute, which is an Indicator title, and it's like a USA, limited edition, which I thought was very cool. Never seen this one. Sounded interesting enough. Good stuff. I do really like what I'm tired, guys, sorry, what Indicator does. I don't have as many titles as I'd like, but I have a handful. And we have from the Vestron collection, of course, Candyman, Day of the Dead. This is part 3, and I don't know if I've ever seen this one. I know I've seen parts of 2. This one's not very popular. It's probably the most despised of the Candyman films, but yeah. So the Vestron series still going strong. Then we have a 4K of Last Night in Soho. This movie is fantastic. It looks amazing. Really liked it. Made my top 10, of course, of the year. Great stuff. Should have maybe put that one first. Now into the Vinegar Syndrome stuff. I guess we'll start with the 4K first. This is Dead Heat, which is an absolutely ridiculous, fun special effects extravaganza. If anybody's not seen this, Joe Piscopo and Treat Williams are cops. One of them becomes a zombie. They might both become zombies in the movie. It's been a while. I think Vincent Price and Darren McGavin both have roles in this movie. Yeah, Vincent Price, of course. Mark Goldblatt directed, the guy who did the 80s version of The Plunger with Dolph Lundgren. We got special effects by Steve Johnson. So this is a blast. And I have not watched it in years. Look forward to watching it in 4K. The craziest movies get a 4K release. Very fun, very fun. And then we have Curfew, which is a title I heard about for years. And I remember there was a dime store cheap UK DVD that I almost imported 100 times. In by 10, Dead by 12. Ooh, and I never actually seen it, and I'm glad I waited. You know, that's why you hold off forever to order something, because Vinegar Syndrome is going to put it out in a deluxe Blu-ray. I don't know much about this one, but I am definitely interested in. Ray and Bob Perkins are brothers whose grisly killing spree has landed them on death row. Ooh, sounds pretty good. I think they escape, and they obviously wreak havoc. So Master of the World, which I think is this Renee? Ooh, spicy on the back there. Maybe some Conan stuff going on for sure. No, it's Alberto Calvione. I did not know that. I would have guessed this is Rene Cardano, Carnona Jr. or something like that. This was a movie I'm not familiar with. Is this one that possibly was put out on like one of the cheap DVDs by, or that's End of the World from Full Moon. So I don't know this movie, Master of the World. I'm not familiar. Then, of course, we have the Forgotten Gialli Collection, Volume 4. That's right, the 4th volume. Very excited to keep these going. As you guys know, me and Duncan McLeish over at the podcast Under the Stairs do a series on the Forgotten Gialli box sets. We've done all 3 of them, and we've also started doing the Carol Baker Umberto Lenzi box set from Severin, and we're going to do this one down the line too. So we got 3 movies in here: Arabella, Black Angel, The Sister of Ursula, and The Killer is Still Among Us. The last 2 in this set I have seen, and yeah, they're pretty good movies actually. They're pretty good gialli, and I think people will get to rediscover them. The Sister of Ursula, super sleazy insanity, great murder weapon. Then we have The Killer is Still Among Us. Is this the one I'm thinking of? Is it no, this is a different one. I was thinking of the Luigi Cozzi movie. This one I'm not familiar with. Carmelo Tenti. So yeah, I was thinking of what is it? The Killer Must Kill Again. Jeez, I'm getting old. And then finally Arabella, Black Angel. So I've only seen one of those. That makes it a little bit more exciting. This director here, directed by Stavolo Massi. I know he did a lot of Polizio Tessi and action-style movies and everything like that. So, yeah, I'm sure I've seen one of his films here or there. These sets are very cool, by the way. And then we have some of their, like, their partner label stuff, and I'm not going to show you my Sinistre. I'll show that in the regular update, of course, but I got Sinistre as well from Saturn Score. But then we have Anyone But My Husband. Ooh, this is from their Pika-Rama. Sometimes, and Sweet Pumpkin. And sometimes you don't want to show the inside cases here, but looks like we're okay to do that here. The Pika-Rama are you no longer have the option to do the entire yearly subscription and get them. Now you have to get the half off like the other ones. But that one was a carryover from last year, so if you yearly sub from last year, you automatically got it. So, okay, now we have one of their new labels they just picked up, Culture Shock, which I've ordered a couple and reviewed a couple of their releases. But this one, Girlfriend from Hell. Very excited to have this one on Blu-ray. This is a fun movie. The devil made her do it, not that she minded. Yeah, this movie I haven't watched in years, but I look forward to rewatching it. Yeah, they put out a couple, like I said, titles. So, yeah, Girlfriend from Hell. It says it's their 6th title here. What else do we got? We got Agfa, of course. Monster of Camp Sunshine. Ooh. Eerie green skin, black twisted hair, yellow teeth, and a staring eye. Only $1.98. It's a Hal, so rush your order now. Horrible full head mask with hair. That's very cool how they have that little advertisement on there. And they also have another film on here, Honeymoon of Terror. So, yeah. Like Agfa, try to pick up all their titles. Although I never get a chance to watch anything anymore because I'm dying. Then we have a Fortress of America here. This is a Vinegar Syndrome archive. Isn't this the same director as... I just feel like I did one of these ones. Is it... did they do Surf Nazis Must Die, or did they do the Nukem High ones? I can't remember. This director here, Eric Luzil, did Class of Nukem High Part 2 and 3. So yeah, same director as that. So, Fortress of America. They actually have an interview with him. I'll have to watch that and see if it sounds anything like the guy who did the commentary on Class of Nukem High Part 3. Haha. Then we have another different label here. This is a Fun City Editions, Modern Color. Lynn Ramsey. This looks very cool. I love that back. That's very cool. I know Lynn Ramsey. Okay. I feel like that director's name is just stinging in my head, and I cannot remember who it is. Okay. Yeah, this looks really cool. Just at least the slipcover is amazing. I gotta one day just dedicate myself and watch all the Fun City releases and do a cover. I'd love to do that one of these days. Do a whole label coverage, stuff that's not too much. So we have Coco D, Coco Da. This is from Dark Star. This is their second release. Their first release was The Last Matinee, which I loved. And this one I hear is pretty wild, pretty weird stuff. Sounds like it's up my alley. If I can get this out of the box, there we go. Yeah, super bizarre stuff. All these beefy slip covers, of course. And this one is Pals. And don't flag me, YouTube. This is a male nipple. I guess male nipples are appropriate. This is Pals from Altered Innocence. This is the director, he did Eloy D. Inglesia, who did Cannibal Man and the Quincy and put out and stuff like that. So yeah, this was one that was one of his more popular movies. Like it felt in line with those movies that Severin put out, but it wasn't in their package. So I'm glad that this one's got a release here. So a classic, how do you say? I knew how to say it. Kinky. It's kinky, classic kinky movie. So yeah, very cool. This director is like. He's put out a lot of interesting stuff, nonetheless, so I'm interested in checking that one out when I get a chance. The Midnight Swim, and this is from, what is this, Yellow Veil Pictures. They also put out another one that I picked up, Midnight Swim. Man, they are just, these partner labels are looking almost as good as the Vinegar Syndrome stuff, man. It's funny, I have the early subscription, but you're still like dropping $200 a month when they put all these partner labels out. You're just like, it's like, I am spending way too much money on all this stuff now. I need a second job just to do it. So then we have the Scary of the 61st. Definitely don't want to see my reflection in there. This movie I actually covered. This is VSP. This is the Vinegar Syndrome sub-label that releases a lot of modern stuff. I like this one. It was a pretty interesting movie. Weird stuff. If you guys not seen this, I would recommend checking it out. It's got 12 covers on it. So you know it's still good. What else do we have here? The Unknown Man of Shangador. I don't buy everything from the sub-labels, but I just buy some of the stuff that interests me. It looks like fricking Howard Vernon's on there with a gun. So definitely had to grab that one. It's definitely got to be Howard Vernon. Yeah, it's definitely Howard Vernon. So yeah, I had to make sure. See, like half the time I just read through them because I get 50% off, and I'm like, that sounds good. That sounds like it's up my alley. Yeah. I'm running out of room up there. I only got a few more titles to go. The Ernie Game. Yeah, this sounded interesting as well. Apparently I grabbed it. What was this one? It's like half the time you forget what you grab. I think this is one of the new labels. Yeah, like this is from the 70s. Yeah, 65. No, wait, what year was this from? 67, yeah. And this one, I think, following a mysterious stay in a psychiatric hospital, Ernie Turner decides to pursue his destiny as a writer, hungry for inspiration. Yeah. I think it's kind of a like-minded loner desperation. Yeah, this sounds pretty good. Like, if anybody's listening to the audio version right now, they're like, what are you talking about? You're just rambling on, Dave. Yeah. It's just me remembering what the fuck I bought. And then, of course, we have Killing Spree by Tim Ritter. Had to get this one. If you guys never seen Killing Spree. This was actually shot. Some people think it's an SOV. No, it was shot on film. I believe it was 35. So, upscale transfer from 1987 1-inch video negative fully. Oh, that sucks. It's not actually remastered from the film. That's a bummer, man. I was almost positive this movie was shot on film, right? It's not remastered from the film negative? Upscaled? That's fucking shitty. I feel like the Blu-ray from Sub Rosa Studios was upgraded from the film. I could have swore this would have been a remaster from the film. It was video negative transfer. Video negative. Duh. Okay. I was a little worried there for a second like that. I thought we were going to get a VHS transfer or something. A video negative transfer. I think that still might be. Anyways, regardless, I need to check this out to see how it looks. But my impression was that Sub Rosa, when they put it out, they actually did do a film transfer. Video negative transfer. I'm not 100% sure if that means directly from the VHS and upscale from the 1-inch master tape, which a lot of SOVs are, but I know this movie was shot on film. So anyways, it's a crazy over-the-top movie, and I think biggest budgeted movie that Tim Ritter ever had. But anyways, I am curious to see if that is actually remastered from the film. I know that Truth or Dare couldn't be because they didn't have the elements, but I know that Sub Rosa Studios put out a Blu-ray as well, and I'll have to compare those two Blu-rays and see which one looks better. I'm not 100% or not. So, because it says it is where is it? It says it's a new one. Yeah, new. So, anyways, I'm not 100% sure. It's got a lot of special features on there, so I'll have to check that out. Anyways, we're going to hop back to the video. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.